No, 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 I know. Trust me. I'm late. I'm a whole day late. I meant to stream yesterday. I was experiencing a bout of I guess catatonia on account of the irresponsible amount of is catatonia the right word? No, I'm thinking comatose. Comatosis? Is that a word? Is that a noun? I got something. I'll tell you that much. Jet lag from Syria flight? Yeah, what the hell is going on over there? Catatonic! That's what I was thinking of. Crazy. Yeah, my brain's not operating at full. I actually got sick. Little bug. Nothing interesting, I think. Just woke up with a sore throat, but it's been getting me. Now, this little guy. This fat ass. What are you doing over there? Got a little, yeah, got a little bit of a sore throat. And, honestly, it's still hitting me. So, like, we'll see how long I can do this, you know? We'll do what we can. Sounds like acid reflux from overeating and sleeping right after. Oh, certainly. Except, newsflash, Susie Clem from BM. If that's your real name, which it's not because I misread your name, so it's not your real name or your fake name. I woke up sick on Thanksgiving, not the day of, like, after Thanksgiving. So, you know, now, did the overeating and the acid reflux help? Definitely not. But, you know. Artemy. He's purring. I can see him purring. I can see his fat little tummy rumbling. Oh, he gave me a meow. Meow. Oh. You've been summoned? Do you speak English or do I speak fat fuck? Hey. Hey. Wah. Mwah. Did your cats get any Thanksgiving food? Yeah, of course they got some turkey. You know, like unseasoned turkey, of course. Big boy. One day this will all belong to you, Artemy. What does Artemy smell like? Like cat, I guess. I mean, he's not stinky, if that's what you mean. You get some cashmere from the J. Crew sale? No, I did get something from J. Crew. What did I get from J. Crew? I think I got some pajamas, but I got something else too. I just don't remember what. Ooh. No, he's distracting me. He's distracting me, and this shirt attracts cat hair like a magnet. If a magnet attracted cat hair. Yeah, okay, we'll talk about Aleppo in a second, because everyone's real surprised by this. Why do we autoplay Fox News? Why will I will never learn. I will never learn. I will never, ever, ever, ever learn. Do we have any Nothing Ever Happens believers in chat? Look, we'll talk about Aleppo in a second, but I promised my beloved editors that I would throw the first segment I did today at them because I didn't stream yesterday, and we need to do a local material and not geopolitical stuff because the average American viewer doesn't know what Aleppo is, where it is, or what it tastes like. Okay? Solidarity for the editors? Yeah, yeah. Man, oh man, oh man. I've got great news. So, you know how Trump is a yapper? I mean, like, Donald Trump says a lot and doesn't do a lot. If you remember his first time in office, like, every day there'd be a new tweet about how he was going to fundamentally restructure the American government, and then it didn't happen. Well, I've got some good news for you folks. Donald Trump has been threatening, of course, a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico until those countries both, I don't know, prevent fentanyl from entering the country or whatever, you know, like just fully insane, like I will start a trade war with our closest trading neighbors unless they conform to the demands of my weird culture war bullshit. Then he had a call with Claudia Sheinbaum. That was 2 days ago. And afterwards, he's like, great news, everyone. Mexico has agreed to all of my demands. It looks like things will be fine. Claudia Sheinbaum disagrees. How funny is that? It looks like we're getting another nothing ever happens moment right here. Like a classic one. Maybe we're not getting those damn tariffs, you know? I told you this could happen. I told you. He's going to threaten the world, and then, like, at the last, he's playing Red Robin. He's going to back out at the last second because it would be insane. He's just using them as, like, a bludgeon. Literally, he's like, unless Claudia stops the flow of migration into America, 1,000,000% tariff. And then he has a call with Claudia where Claudia's like, yeah, we'll, like, I don't know, we'll do our best to address the human rights of refugees. And he leaves the call and he's like, she agreed to all my terms. No need for the disastrous tariff that would have destroyed the economy. Seriously, look at this. Donald Trump and Sheinbaum appear to have starkly different recollections of a conversation that covered the hot-button issue of migration. After the phone chat last Wednesday, Trump wrote in social media the Mexican leader had agreed to stop immigration through Mexico into the United States. No, she didn't. That'd be an insane thing to agree to. Just had a wonderful conversation with the new president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo. She's agreed to stop migration through Mexico and into the United States, effectively closing our southern border. It was a very productive conversation. Sheinbaum's account differed from Trump's. In our conversation with President Trump, I explained to him the comprehensive strategy that Mexico has followed to address the migration phenomenon, respecting human rights. We reiterate that Mexico's position is not to close borders, but instead build bridges between government and people. I love Claudia because I feel like a lot of other people in this position would not have publicly stated that Donald Trump was just flat out lying. Like, a lot of people would just, like, quietly let that be known to the press, like, 2.5 years later, so they could write a book about it or something. Like, they wouldn't risk disruption. But she just flatly says, like, no, that's not what happened in the conversation. Keep in mind, she is in no way, shape, or form, like, agreeable to Trump's administration. She was threatening a trade war over the tariffs that Donald Trump was proposing. She was saying she was going to meet them in kind. Like, we're not talking about somebody who's just meekly going along with his agenda here. So the fact that she, like, I'm given to trust her account of the conversation much more than Donald Trump's. It's another nothing ever happens moment. I'm telling you. Donald Trump is going to threaten a lot. How much of it is actually going to happen? I'm not saying that a lot of bad things aren't going to happen. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying, like, it's not even day one. It's literally not even day one. And Trump is already trying to find excuses to back out of not just promises, but, like, the hyper-aggressive economic platform that he was campaigning on. This was, like, the main thing that he was talking about. It's not just the main thing. It's both of the main things. Tariffs and immigration. These are, like, in this one conversation, we have distilled the two principal positions of his 2024 campaign. And he's already, like, in the most transparent, flagrant, like, please God, get me out of here way possible, backing out of his position. Are you enjoying the nothing ever happens, folks? Well, refill your popcorn. You're going to love what doesn't happen next. Yeah, he's going to deport like 100, like actual convicted criminals who are undocumented immigrants. And then he's going to declare the immigration crisis has been solved, He'll say he's deported 20 million people. I don't think it's a back out. He just has to say he did the thing and his following will believe it. I mean, yeah, for like politics reasons, and that's it's going to be 4 years of Donald Trump threatening to do a thing, him not doing the thing, and then things staying the same because he didn't do the thing, but him claiming that the country has been made better, and all of his sycophants and cult followers screaming from the rooftops that he improved the thing and the thing has never been this good and it's better than it's ever been before. This is objectively better than doing all the Project 2025 shit, though, right? I mean, I hope he still cuts taxes because I would benefit from it. Okay, yeah, let me just... Hold on. I'm glad he's not doing the tariffs because that would really cut into the Japanese denim budget. He's probably going to cut taxes, so that's cool. I'm going to enjoy when he implements, like, a flat 10% tax plus a national 22.375% sales tax, so you guys are all getting, like, bilked at the grocery store after he removes like sales tax protections on cooking goods and other essentials. Meanwhile, I'm ordering, like DoorDash gets so many subsidies that it's actually cheaper to, like order every burrito with a personal chauffeur as long as you have the credit to open a line, which I do. I don't know. Maybe Trump's presidency is going to be good. I'm thinking about this now. You know, he can open up more interurban highways that segregate people based on their race, as long as like he doesn't, as long as it's not like in a way that if it doesn't get in between me and going downtown for the like Pike Place market deals, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good. I've cured my Trump derangement syndrome. Really, though, you guys know this is good news, right? Like, genuinely. It speaks to a broader tendency. Yap, 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 promise the world. I got an email recently about how over in Germany, the AfD has actually been making an effort to diversify and broaden their base. I'm not kidding, the AfD. And I haven't looked at all the links yet. I've been busy, Thanksgiving and all. I looked at some of them. It seems like there's some legit... Because the same thing happened in Italy with Meloni and with Le Pen in France. Every time fascists get closer and closer to taking over like a liberal democracy, they fucking break down because it's actually really, really difficult to deliberalize and de-democratize a modern like liberal democracy. It's genuinely very difficult because even if you erode the institutions, the people, like the people are still like, I don't know. I just don't want to be bothered that much by the government. People are like generally pretty libertarian leaning. Even over in Europe, like relative to how things were a century ago, people aren't as like blood and soil as they used to be. It's just like a few freaks, really. Again, I'm not saying they can't do bad things. I'm only saying I just think it's funny. I mean, this would have been ruinous for our economy, and he's already backing out of it. Yeah, exactly. They want treats. The problem with fascism in America is, to paraphrase a tweet that I saw, the American social contract is all about getting delicious little treats from China. And the moment that breaks down, there will be riots in the streets. So you can do fascism up to an extent, but if it gets in the way of like your delicious little treats from China, it's not going to work. People are too complacent. They're very complacent. It's funny. Anyway, Fox News, of course, is straightforwardly reporting this as a Donald Trump victory, obviously. Trump says Mexico will stop flow of migrants after speaking with Mexican president following tariff threats. I like how it's now a tariff threat. Like, he flatly said he was going to do it. I guess that counts as a threat, like, technically. I think that most sane people would consider it a policy proposal, considering the fact that he was talking about, like, across-the-board tariffs the entire presidential run. So now it's like, oh, no. He didn't say he was going to do it. He was making a little threat. He was just, he was just saying stuff to like bully them. And yeah, Claudia Sheinbaum didn't like kowtow to the bullying at all. In fact, she actively threatened a trade war over it and hasn't like backed off any position, but it's still a win for Donald Trump. The art of the deal. How to win friends and influence people. Tip number 1, do nothing and agree with everything they do. Is the Fox News article even going to mention that she said that wasn't what she talked about with Trump? In a post on Twitter, Sheinbaum said she spoke with Trump by phone and that the two discussed strengthening collaboration on security issues and that the conversation was excellent. Interesting. So we're not linking to it, and we're only quoting selective bits from it. Sheinbaum explained the, quote, comprehensive strategy Mexico has employed to address the migration phenomena respecting human rights. Oh, here we go. Okay, they do include this part. We reiterate that Mexico's position is not to close borders, but to build bridges between governments and between people. Fox News, is there perhaps like a contradiction you might want to address in your article here? Like the headline of the article says that Trump says that another person says a thing, but in the body of the article it says she said a different thing. Like, is that maybe like just a slight contradiction that we might want to address? No one reads past the headlines. And then they start talking about fentanyl. You know, fentanyl deaths are down. Something the Biden administration didn't really talk about, but Trump will take credit for on day one. I'm already seeing all of the like consumer index polls where like after the election, Republicans are saying that the economy is better now, and Democrats are saying it's worse. I'm already getting do not look at the consumer index poll or whatever. Don't, unless you want to become the Joker, because it's literally like all vibes. It's remarkable. I love that poll. It's unreal. You need to show that poll to every Democratic consultant until they break, and then see what they come up with, you know? Some guy who was born in Massachusetts, who went to Ivy League school, and thinks that the way Democrats win is by, like, offering Pell Grants or something, and then you show him that poll where people think the economy is doing better if they're Republican now that Trump has won, even though he hasn't taken office yet, and show them that over and over and over until they break, and then I don't even know what they'd come up with. Something fierce, no doubt. Very good. Who even is Joe Biden? Nobody knows. Look at Syria, major... Whoa, Syria, you're telling me stuff. That's Syria? Whoa, thank you for letting me know. That's crazy. It was about to, like, blow right past my head, but thanks to you. Here, hold on. I got the sniffles. I'm definitely still a little sick. All right. Let me throw that over. Tempest, are you there? Maybe just like Trump already backing down on tariff pledge. Like Trump already backing down on tariff pledge. And then the thumb. Okay, the thumb has to have the Fell for It Again award. You know what I'm talking about? The MAGA Wojak with the badge that says Fell for It Again. We're going to be getting a lot of use out of that. You might want to like PNG that shit and save that in like a folder that you keep on your desktop. You know? Right next to your like, you know, recycle bin. We're going to be getting a lot of use out of that. Make it an emote. I should, if I can find a way to make it a good emote. Can you have the mods make an emote? I make my own emotes. But yeah, it would have to look good. Artemy, you are being like very clingy right now. Oh, and there he goes again. Let me send it over. Oh, I got this sniffles. Oh, man. World's bravest streamer. It makes you self-conscious, you know? Having the sniffles in front of a camera. Australia's banned social media for under 16s. Yeah, I know. We talked about this a while ago. I guess it's finally been approved. It's finally gone through. Again, I'm of two minds on this. On one hand, like, does it give young, lonely, I don't know, fucking queer people an escape from their local... you know what? I still think I support this. The internet is fucked up right now, man. I'm not even talking... Like, the basic ones people go to is, like, pornography or whatever. It's literally, like, if your 10-year-old child gets on the family computer and looks up, like, how to make girls like you or something because they have a crush on their fifth grade peer. And then like 2 minutes later, they're watching Andrew Tate chain smoke cigars and talk about how women are dogs or something. I don't know. In theory, this is good. The written law, on the other hand, is absurd, like actually horrific. I mean, it is Australia and they're a nanny state, so, you know. I don't know. I'm not necessarily saying that I agree with the law as written. It's just, man, the current state of the internet. I feel people don't want to talk about how easy it is to get groomed online when you're a teenager. Yeah, why is it that like when I was growing up, everyone was like, yeah, be careful online, there are predators online. And now that it's 2024, it's like 50 times easier than ever to get groomed online. Like a degree, because all the separate spaces are gone. Like people aren't going on Club Penguin anymore when they're a kid. Roblox is like Groom Central or whatever. And it's all like, it's like 5 social media sites where there's no block between the people who are 10 and the people who are posting like Sonic inflation foot porn or something. You know? Your 10-year-old plays Sonic Adventures 2 for some reason and then goes online and types up Sonic in the Twitter search bar and is irrevocably changed for the rest of their life. Like, I don't know. It feels like it's easier than ever, but I don't think people talk. Maybe I just don't hear them talk about it anymore because I'm not a kid, so it wouldn't be prudent to have that conversation with me. It's weird. Lowen Graham, that's like saying parents no longer have the talk about stranger danger with their kids because now the parents are with their kids in a brothel. So now that they're with the kid, they don't feel like they like now before the children were at the daycare while the parent went to a brothel, and now they're both at the brothel, so the parent doesn't need to have the stranger danger convo with the kid. You know? I don't know if that necessarily helps. They got to be teaching cyber safety, man. I don't know. They got to bring back like forums or something. It's probably better than what we currently have. I'm telling you, I had whole classes as a child now, and now it's non-existent. Yeah, it's fucked up. How fucked up would it be if, like, in 3 years, Australian children have much lower rates of depression, social anxiety, and fewer of them are queer? You know what I mean? Like, they just go back to, like, early 2000s levels of demographic representation. What lesson do you learn from that? Fewer are queer? I subscribe to the social contagion theory, which is that queerness is socially transmissible, as is non-queerness. So, yeah, sure, are queer or less queer. I follow it, you know? The default pathogen is heterosexuality. You know what I mean? Does that mean the straights are more contagious? Yeah. Why haven't the straights infected us? Because of the internet, no doubt. Now kids are getting groomed by AI. It sounds like a joke, but we literally spent 2 hours going over that one story. Yeah, we're literally like a kid killed himself because he was Florida. Okay, a ban on social media for under 16s has to also be a ban on, like, you know, chatbots. It was really wild, Thana. Had a convo with chat over that one. It would function be a ban on chatbots, wouldn't it? Well, I'd be fine with that. Chatbots aren't social media? Yeah, but, like, they kind of are. In outcome, at least. In, like, the rot of modernity. Well, yeah, why would he do anything about it, Diego B? That's his damn clientele. They scrape social media, so same difference. Yeah, the loop around is you can't use social media, so children just start, like, using character AI to reconstruct social media. Like, they have a forum or, like, a Discord server with 8 or 10 other like AI characters that they've kind of, like, programmed to behave different ways. And they're not even famous characters. They're just, like, people in their school. That's true. Wouldn't Discord be social media? You know what I miss? Whatever happened to, like, AIM chat rooms and the only people you talked to were people you knew from your school, okay? Those were the days. Nowadays, if you want to, like, join an online social group, it's like a Discord server full of weirdos and groomers. But with the forum or with the AIM chat rooms, you just share your, like, AIM handle. AIM chat rooms were also filled with groomers. Yeah, that's true. Argument defeated. That's true. That's true. Yerp. We should all go back to hanging out on Newgrounds and playing Flash games. That's true. Tom Fulp, where are you? What are you up to these days? You need to bring it back. My throat hurts so much. Newgrounds is full of porn. Yeah, it didn't used to have it, or at least it didn't used to have as much. I remember back when they allowed porn on Newgrounds. It wasn't like that originally. Well, they had it anyway, but, like, you know, it wasn't the same. You are crazy. It was always like... It was not always like what it ended up being, okay? It's been like 15 years since then, lol. Yeah, and I was 15 years ago. Old ass fucking boomer. Guy grew up on Newgrounds. Boomer. Okay, boomer. Okay. Unironically, can somebody explain to me what the fuck is going on? I thought we had this shit on pause. I can't keep track of everything. So, okay, so everyone was taken by surprise on this. Apparently, the Syrian rebels just took Aleppo. You took a break, that's why? Yeah, sorry, my flight just got back from Aleppo. Hold on, somebody link this. Is it a meme video or... I don't know. I'm gonna be honest, and this might be, like, cultural bias on my part. I can't take this facial hair seriously at all. You know, there's just, like, an Amish, Chechen, Syrian rebel unity that like, pervades through time and culture and always makes me feel like it's a joke. But I don't know. That's obviously a meme. That's a Prigozhin edit. Do you want to believe it anyway? Prigozhin with the photoshopped hairstyle. Do you want to believe it anyway? It's a still image with audio. That's a shame. I thought it'd be funnier. Well, anyway, over here in the real world, yeah, no, seriously, Syrian rebels took Aleppo. What's going on with that? Like, that's pretty wild. I saw a live UA map screenshot where it was literally like, oh yeah, here's an update. You know, Syrian rebel controlled area. here's a little chunk. It's right here. I hear Assad soldiers are also defecting. I mean, it's got to be, like, boring to be on Assad's team. You know what I mean? Got to be uninteresting. What's a Lepo? What's a TIFF? Okay, so, okay, basically, the Arab Spring happened, and Syria broke apart, and there are a bunch of different factions inside Syria, and the largest and most powerful of them is the one that's, like, ostensibly the Syrian government, which is controlled by Assad, who's the guy who keeps winning with 99.99% of the votes because he's that popular. He killed a bunch of student protesters and so on and so forth. He's a very bad guy. You know, he gas bombed civilians, but thankfully the gas just went out the windows. And yeah, he's backed by Russia, like very obviously, directly, openly backed by Russia to a significant extent. He's also ostensibly the only, what's the term? Why am I blanking? Agnostic military force in the Middle East, like in a region dominated by Islamist, or in one specific case, Jewish supremacist forces. Secular. Yeah, secular. Thank you. Secular is the word I'm looking for. Assad is like ostensibly a secular leader. Is he actually? Are his forces actually? It's I'm sure very complicated, but that's like the narrative, you know. There's Rojava, of course, the Kurdish militia over in the east, which was for a time and still is to some extent like defended by U.S. soldiers because we're guarding oil fields over there. And then there were like Syrian rebels, and the Syrian rebels range from like more or less democratically minded individuals to like Al-Qaeda, basically. I think the rebels that have taken over Aleppo have broke with Al-Qaeda a while ago. Like, it's a big wide tent of groups, and I'm pretty sure that they're no longer officially on good terms. Long story short, they launched a surprise attack, and since the Russians and Hezbollah are busy, the Assadist military fled in disorder. Well, that's probably good. The Syrian Arab army fled Aleppo, abandoning equipment there. The Kurds also kicked them in, or the Kurds also kicked them in. The Syrian rebels started moving south. Now they're all the way in Tama. Goddamn. Don't forget about the Turks to the north. Yeah, let's just get the live UA map. Live UA map, Syria. Let's get the, we love our, you know, like, on the floor of a children's daycare ass map with 57 colors. The map. Okay. Pro-Assad forces are back at the northern entrance to the city of Hama. Okay. Where are the... Okay. A lot of wacky shit going on down here. Now, can your favorite streamer identify Aleppo at a distance, or is he washed? He can. He's not washed. He's not washed. Artemy's clawing at the door. God help me. Artemy! Artemy, Aleppo has been taken. You have to be not annoying. Aleppo has been liberated by dubiously moral forces. I love my, you know, enough of these like morally ambiguous conflicts, you know, like you've got like Israel and Hezbollah. Now, do we support Israel? No, but is Hezbollah good? No. Thankfully, the Syrian rebel forces are on the up and up. Thankfully, these guys, you know, in the clear. Whoo, dilly. We are so back, Rebel Bros. Yeah, no kidding. Okay, take a look at the key. Yeah, green is FSA or Al-Sham, other moderate groups. Yellow, Kurds. Red is pro-Assad forces. So yeah, looks like they've been kicked out of the city. So yeah, red, these are the Assadist forces. Yellow over here is the Kurds. This is the area where Rojava is. Up here we have Turkey, very bad. We don't like them, even though we just had them, you know, the other day. Good map with less colors. What are you, racist? Syrian rebels have launched a rapid offensive in the northwest city, catching Aleppo, the city's second largest city. Rebel forces have also advanced southward, reaching the outskirts of Hama. This is pretty wild. Look at the ideologies of the Syrian rebel faction taking Aleppo. Yeah, no. The Syrian National Army is fucking insane. They are not good. It's literally just the fuck Assad coalition, right? They are unified. Like, if these guys ever took full control of Syria, which is doubtful, mind, but if they did, they would instantly be shredded. They would be torn apart by their own, like, disagreements and contradictions, you know? Unlike the Kurdish forces in the east, which are kind of like, not, I can't say like they're fully united, but for the most part, like, they kind of have their mindset on what kind of governance they want. You know what I mean? Like, with Rojava and everything, like, there's some semblance of stability. Whereas in this case, these guys are not going to hold together very well. What did the Kurds do? Exist, mostly. That was their crime. There seems to be some sort of tacit agreement between rebel groups from Rojava to avoid clashes, which hopefully holds. It can't hold for long, right? I mean, these guys are like Turkey backed, and Turkey fucking hates Rojava because they hate their own Kurds. Like, if these guys ever won, they would gobble up Rojava as well. But hopefully, like, Assad is. Is it possible that Assad is actually the lesser evil here? Probably not. I just wonder if we're kind of seeing the precursor to another, like Shah versus Ayatollah situation, right? Where Assad is kind of like the Shah in the sense that he's, like, heavily backed by a foreign power and largely disliked by the population. And this might be like the, you know, the Iranian Revolution playing out in incredibly slow motion, where eventually if Assad falls, then the whole country turns into like basically like a failed state. I mean, half of it's been a failed state for a while. You underestimate how evil Assad is. You can present your opinion without demeaning my intelligence and knowledge on the subject, you know? You can just say, I disagree because Assad is so on, rather than saying, like, you're stupid and you've forgotten something. Sorry? That's okay, I forgive you. You're named Haruhi Suzumiya, so I know that... Nothing. Never mind. Never mind. You gonna finish that thought? Nope. Pretty sure the term is Ba'athist, not Assadist, but Assadist is easier to say. You've forgotten to consider the most important factor in me naming Middle Eastern groups. Man, oh man. No, in all seriousness, it's probably the case that even with the Syrian National Army being incoherent and largely bad, they're still better than Assad by a pretty well. Because, like, worst case scenario, Syria turns into a failed state, but they kind of already are. Like, that's not new. Well, wait, hold on. Isn't ISIS coming back? Isn't ISIS back in a big way right now? Aren't they in vogue? Isn't, like, a significant chunk of Iraq kind of threatening or being threatened by pressure? No? I read this, like, the other day. ISIS is so back, y'all. Not really, they keep getting crushed. I wonder if this would give them, like, an in, you know? At some point you do hit bedrock, but ISIS still exists. Worst case scenario, like, absolute worst case scenario, would be the SNA does better than we expect. Assad's support collapses. He Hitlers himself in a bunker, and ISIS takes advantage of the... Well, I shouldn't say takes advantage of, because ISIS is a, like, incoherent death cult. Like, they don't really... There's not much central organization from that community. Probably more like ISIS kind of, like, emerges like a festering rot on a wound, you know? From the chaos, but I don't know. That's not the SNA that took, that's Tahrir al-Sham. Am I stupid? I mean, yes, but this is the rebel forces. I guess it's not necessarily the Syrian National Army. Tahrir al-Sham specifically is the like branch, the leader of the branch that took over the Sunni Islamist involved in the Syrian civil war. There are many rebel groups. No. I know there are many rebel groups. There's like literally like too many to like. There's the fucking 57, at minimum 57. I mean, you know, it's a lot of people here. This guy specifically is the one who captured Aleppo. I still can't believe they fucking captured Aleppo. There are a bunch of videos on Twitter, but you remember the joke I keep making about how you can never tell if any war footage is authentic because you might just be looking at footage from the Syrian civil war? This time we have the same problem, but even greater, magnified, because now it is going to be, even if it's correct, footage from the Syrian civil war, and I can't tell I can't tell what's real. It would have to be like a do I support the source kind of deal, and I've seen like basically every you know, fucking foreign military OSN account post bullshit at some point or another. Yeah, I'm trying to find the right kind of needle in a stack of needles, basically. And Shias Islamists backed by Turkey, smashed through Saddest line, quickly marching south. Rojava's doing a lot. I can see Rojava's doing a lot. Got a lot of yellow right here. I mean, they're putting in work. God damn. Yeah, area control. Rebels, FSA moderate groups, the Kurds. Let's see. Okay, I'll take a look at that. Look at what Giuliani is saying about the occupations. Giuliani? Huh. All right, well, I thought that guy was managing his bankruptcy right now. But, yeah, we can take a look at what he's got to say. I'm looking. All right, we've run into another issue, which is that I speak and read English, and even that only barely. Islam taught us kindness and mercy. Be a role model of tolerance and forgiveness. I hold you responsible for representing Syria's revolution. Build what Syria's people have been waiting for decades. Well, that sounds nice. Forces fleeing Aleppo.
مدينة الرستان عدد هائل من المواكب باتجاه.
Here, let's take a look at this guy super quick. Like, really quick, let's get a feel for this guy. I know that there are a lot of Westoids who might not care about stuff like this, but keep in mind that the entire, like, Western shift rightward was predicated by the, Arab Spring and Syrian refugee crisis. Like, literally, there is, like, no country is an island, you know? Very important. Even if you only care about the West, like, shit like this matters a lot. Very important. Here's the translation of the statement. Okay. To our heroic mujahideen in the field, show mercy, compassion, and kindness to our people in the city of Aleppo. Let the preservation of their lives, property, and well-being, as long as the establishment of security in the city, be our utmost priority. Do not cut down a tree, frighten a child, or intimidate any of our people, regardless of their sect or background. Aleppo has always been and still is a meeting place of civilizations and cultures, with a long history of cultural, religious, and social diversity. It stands a heritage for all Syrians. Oh, that sounds nice. It sounds pretty woke, yeah. It is good. I mean, Aleppo, okay, you know how every nanosecond that passes, Israel nukes another World Heritage Site in the Gaza Strip? Aleppo is like one of the human Civ cities, you know what I mean? Like, if they're still making Civ games in the year 10,000, this would be one of them artifact cities that gets you a cultural victory if you hold on to it for 50 turns. Aleppo has, it's of great importance to people who, unlike me, have a great understanding of history, okay? That's all I can really say. Assad is fleeing to Moscow. Why would he flee to Moscow? Like, Damascus is a while away. He didn't flee, lol. Is he just, like, there? He's not fleeing, he just decided to go anyway? Peskov also declined comment on unconfirmed reports that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad made an unplanned trip to Moscow following the... Okay, well, that sounds like fleeing. There were infightings in Damascus. Look at the map. Can your streamer immediately identify where Damascus is off a map, or is he washed? He's washed. It's over. Is the Damascus being hidden south part? Of course it would be in the south part, because that's where Israel has an easier time bombing them. There we go. They hide the text of the city. Somebody in chat said it's a day's drive south, and like, motherfucker, maybe if no one's stopping you, there's no fucking way the Syrian rebel forces are making the drive from Aleppo down to Damascus in one day. Not at this distance. That's what I get for looking at chat. Yeah, he's washed. He's washed. Well, you know what? Sometimes clothes need washing. Not as often as you probably do them, though. There are a lot of people in Damascus. Infighting different factions of his government, or infighting, that's what they're talking about. That's pretty funny. All right. So this is the guy who's currently organizing the conquest of Aleppo. Google Maps says 4-hour drive from Aleppo to Damascus. Okay, motherfucker. Then go down to Aleppo right now, and then go to Damascus. See how long it takes you. Abu Muhammad al-Julani, Ahmed Hussein al-Shara. Okay, we got a lot of names. I get it. Other cultures have cooler names than us. That's fine. Ahmed Hussein's family came from the Golan Heights. Wonder who put a B in this guy's bonnet, huh? Wonder what... He's a militia leader, huh? Well, what could have happened to... I wonder. Displaced after the Six-Day War. Yeah. Okay. Imprisoned by Syrian Baathists. These are the Assadists during the anti-Nasserist purges. Initiated after the 61-63 United Arab Republic, propelled the Ba'athist party to power, right? Assad, da-da-da. Okay, so this guy had like a main character, like, story. You know what I mean? Like, where you guys, like, where were you born? Oh, you were born in Ohio. And you went to high school and you went to college because your parents told you to. Okay, this guy, like, fully ruined village, homeland destroyed, forced to flee, imprisoned by a dictator. Yeah, Isekai MC backstory. Exactly. Nico Robin ass backstory. I want to live. Jelani's father was again imprisoned. He was later released and found asylum in Saudi Arabia. Nice. Okay. Al-Jelani, 82. Oil engineer till 89. Okay. He moved to Iraq to fight American troops after the 2003 invasion. He quickly rose to the ranks of Al-Qaeda in Iraq, AQI. The Times of Israel newspaper claimed Jelani was a close associate of AQI leader Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. In a 2021 interview with Frontline, al-Jelani asserted he had never personally met al-Zarqawi, trying my best, throat hurts, and denied any leadership roles during the early Iraqi insurgency other than finding a regular footholder. Before the eruption of the Iraqi Civil War in 2006, Jelani was arrested by American forces, imprisoned by over 5 years in various prisons. These prisons included Abu Ghraib. Holy shit! His family has the MC backstory, then he gets the MC backstory. What the fuck? This family is like Forrest Gump. The main character of Middle East. What the fuck? Okay. They were just cycling him around. The guy with the potato sack over his head in the famous picture at Abu Ghraib, that's him. That's probably not actually him. I shouldn't say that. It might be him. It's probably not, though. Play the clip from Vice. What clip from Vice? One of these links? Frontline, you mean? No, that's with PBS. Where's the Vice clip? This guy was in Vice? Well, you would need to provide the clip for me to see the clip. I can't magically produce them. I'll get link. That would be a good idea. I'm not Siri. What was I talking about? Moved to Syria, established Al-Qaeda Syrian branch known as Jabhat al-Nusra. The group was allied to the Islamic State of Iraq until 2013. Oop! Canceled. Sorry, unfollowing. I followed the Islamic State of Iraq for their, Islamist militancy. Did not know about the death cult element. Unfollowing immediately. Formation of Al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria, facilitated by men, arms and money given to him by the ISI. Department of State declared Jabhat al-Nusra to be an officially designated terrorist organization, noting it was simply a new alias for Al-Qaeda in Iraq. Under al-Julani's leadership, al-Nusra grew into one of the most powerful groups in Syria. Conflict with ISIS. Okay. Resurgence of al-Nusra. Okay, right. After the Syrian civil war. Got more aggressive. Considering his background, his statements have been very tame so far. Yeah, credit where credit's due. This is like the opposite of what ISIS would say. So maybe he's learned his lesson, you know? There are different flavors of Islamic militancy. We shouldn't engage in the like racist assumption that all Islamic militants are of or around the ISIS level, obviously. I mean, there are plenty of people presumably in Hezbollah who are just like grillers. You know what I mean? Yep. It's simple. Love me Lebanon. Love me Mediterranean. 8 Israel. 8 2,000-pound bombs. Leave it be. It's like the median Hezbollah militant. A buddy of mine said Giuliani grew stronger through the power of DEI. I mean, so did America, right? All those Italians we let in. Hiding power level, probably. I don't really think so, you know? I've seen a few statements from people in this position, like, you know, they're not normally this conciliatory. You have to think like long-term goals, right? These people are associated with Turkey, or is that just the general like vibe of the Syrian rebel army? Or is this guy? Well, we didn't get all the way. We didn't finish the Wikipedia read. Okay, hold on. That's true, Richard Haney. He's having a bit of a victory lap right now. Uh-oh. When asked about al-Nusra's plan for a post-war Syria, al-Julani stated that after the war ended, all factions in the country would be consulted before anyone considered establishing an Islamic State. Well, that's nice. Though he was asked this about a decade ago, so maybe he was being a little more mindful of the other forces involved. He also mentioned al-Nusra would not target the country's Alawite minority, despite their support for the Assad regime. Quote, "Our war is not a matter of revenge against the Alawites, despite the fact that in Islam they are considered to be heretics." A commentary on this interview, however, states that al-Julani also added that Alawites would be left alone as long as they abandon elements of their faith which contradict Islam. Oh, there you go. He called for indiscriminate attacks on Alawite villages in Syria. Ah, well, there you go. He said, quote, "There is no choice but to escalate the battle and target Alawite towns and villages in Latakia." Al-Julani also called for Russian civilians to be attacked by former Soviet Muslims. Like in Russia, I assume. Like, that would be like a Chechen thing, I would assume. These are literal terrorists? Really? The guy who leads the Syrian Al-Qaeda branch? It's a strong claim. Let's see if it's backed up by the facts. Al-Julani announced in a recorded message in 2016 that Jabhat al-Nusra would henceforth go under the new name of Jabhat Fateh al-Sham, Front for the Conquest of Syria. As part of the announcement, al-Jilani stated the rebranded group had, quote, no affiliation to any external identity. While some analysts have interpreted this as breaking away from al-Qaeda, the group was not specifically mentioned in the announcement, and al-Jilani at that time had not explicitly renounced his oath of allegiance to Ayman al-Zawahiri. So it's, in all likelihood, my man is locked in and focusing. I mean, at least what I've heard is that he's not actively working with other branches of al-Qaeda, so it's probably safe to assume that he should be treated as his own, from what I've heard, as his own entity, rather than just like Syrian al-Qaeda. Jilani announced in 2017 that their new group would dissolve and be subsumed into a new, larger Syrian Islamist group called Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, Assembly for the Liberation of the Levant. Oh god, this guy's so fucking ambitious. First, he's with al-Qaeda. Then he's like, okay, fuck that, Syrian liberation. Then, like, 1 year later, he's like, the whole Levant. Hey, it's just the Levant, buddy. It's not like there are any superpowers around here. Oh, man. Under Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, called HTS for short, the group focused on fighting al-Qaeda and ISIS to get rid of hostile perceptions from the West. With HTS, he crushed ISIS, al-Qaeda, and the majority of opposing forces in the vicinity of HTS, and now controls nearly all of the Idlib government, or governorate, under the governance of the HTS-aligned Syrian Salvation Government. Oh my god, how do you keep track of the bureaucracy in Syria, man? Jesus Christ. Okay, so when he broke away from al-Qaeda, then he meant it. In the summer of 2020, al-Jilani made frequent public appearances around Idlib in an attempt to gain support from the population. Video output by HTS-affiliated media increased significantly through mid-2020, with multiple videos being published daily showing governance videos, distribution of taxations in rural villages, frontline videos, and al-Jilani meeting with local militia groups. Holy shit! Okay, well, I mean, from the perspective of like as a fellow Islamist militant who's done a lot of work in Syria, I can say this is how you'd want a guy to do it, right? Drop affiliation with al-Qaeda, fight against ISIS to avoid antagonizing the West, kind of like manage your relations, and then post like governance videos, you know? Because this is what ISIS didn't give a this was a clarification that I had to talk about this a lot when we last talked about ISIS, which is that ISIS was never interested in governance. Like, when ISIS controlled an area, they just controlled the area. You know what I mean? They were like an occupying force. But for the most part, they had to leave local civic governance intact because ISIS militants had no interest in like getting into the, you know, fiddly mechanics of running a city. They just want to kill people. They're pretty crazy. Yeah, they collected taxes, but it was just like war economy shit. You know what I mean? They weren't really interested in converting an area into their own country, which is why their desire for a caliphate was never like really that sincere. Much in the same way as a lot of Western white nationalists talk about wanting a glorious white empire. In reality, they just fantasize about shooting up schools, you know? It's not like they're like, we will return with a V dreams are an insincere front for what is really like an extremely antisocial and reactionary like, you know, militancy. This, on the other hand, seems a lot more, you know, a lot more forward-thinking. PBS Frontline released a documentary, The Jihadist, in which al-Jilani's past is investigated in the context of the ongoing Syrian civil war. Oh, we're at the end of the... okay. All right. Reflecting on his past affiliation with al-Qaeda, Jilani commented in the interview, quote, "The history of the region and what it went through over the past 20 or 30 years needs to be taken in consideration. We are talking about a region ruled by tyrants, by people who rule with iron fists and their security apparatuses." So to be clear, he is 100% doing this because he wants to keep the West off his back. Ideally, my guess is that he thinks that if he's really going to rule Syria, he can't have Turkey and the West at large holding him, designating him as a terrorist. He needs to be thought of as like a liberating force by the West, or we will undermine him. Turkey's funding him. Yeah, but Turkey is like barely part of the West and barely part of NATO. So just because Turkey supports him, they might just be supporting him for anti-Assadist reasons. This is probably part of a broader PR campaign, which is smart. That's smart, you know? Doesn't necessarily make him a good guy, but it's definitely smart. We can't take a segment of this history and say so-and-so joined Al-Qaeda. There are thousands of people who joined Al-Qaeda, but let us ask what was the reason behind these people joining Al-Qaeda. That's the reason. Are the U.S. policies after World War II toward the region partially responsible for driving people towards the Al-Qaeda organization? And are the European policies in the region responsible for the reactions of people who sympathize with the Palestinian cause or the way the Zionist regime deals with Palestinians? Are the broken and oppressed peoples who had to endure what happened in Iraq, for example, or in Afghanistan, are they responsible? Our involvement with Al-Qaeda in the past was an era, and it ended. And even at the time when we were with Al-Qaeda, we were against external attacks, and it's not completely against our policies to carry out external operations from Syria who target European or American people. This was not a part of our calculations at all, and we did not do it at all. No, I mean, he seems like a smart and reasonable guy. Whether or not that will necessarily translate into him being a positive liberatory force, I guess we'll have to see. But you know, it's probably it's a testament to his reasonability that the reason he was able to get Aleppo and the reason Assad may or may not have fled Damascus seems to be that he's causing instability within the Assadist forces, right? Like, if people are defecting, you know, you can't just be the most powerful guy to inspire your enemy's soldiers to defect. You have to give them a better deal, basically. You have to make it clear that you represent something better for them in the long run. Also, Rojava has opened a new front against the regime in Deir ez-Zor. Also, the SDF has agreed to a truce after the SDF seized Assad's territory to create a land bridge from Manbij to the Kurdish enclaves in Aleppo. That seems strategically useful. So you're saying that there is right now a relatively high degree of cooperation between Jolani's forces and the you know, the Rojavan or the Kurdish militia. It seems like they're working together on this, like pretty closely. Creating a land bridge to the Kurdish minority in Aleppo. That's very speculative info. I mean, on the map, like, we probably would have heard if there was really aggressive clashing because they're right up next to each other, you know? Like, this does suggest, or it implies a degree of, if not cooperation, then mutual tolerance. Rojava has been working with the West for years. No, I know that, but now it seems they're working with, you know, Tahrir al-Sham. There's a statement from the IDF condemning the rebels. Oh, I bet. They aren't fighting side by side, but they are, they're also not fighting each other. Well, that's good. Wikipedia works fast. I want them to win, but also be chill about Kurdistan. If Giuliani is serious about wanting to not just, you know, defeat Assad, but rule over Syria, then he will need to cooperate with the Kurds indefinitely. There are too many Kurds, and they are too powerful, and they have too many ties for them to, like if they tear apart a shaky coalition with infighting of that caliber, then this is doomed from the start. He must understand that the only way forward is cooperation. Now Artemy wants to leave again, but I can't keep the door open. Artemy, you're so annoying. This is so crazy. I'm sure this is not as much of a like shock if you're following this conflict day by day. But yeah, getting all the news out of it. Russian air base has been captured, by the way. Good. Reportedly, all rebel factions, no matter their colors in the north, have agreed not to fight each other. There are already overlapping control areas like in Quiris Air Base and the city of Deir Hafir, east of Aleppo, which support that claim. Apparently, all Syrian rebel factions have agreed the primary enemy of Syria is Assad, Russia, ISIS, and Iran. Well, we'll see how that plays out. In the first 10 hours of the offensive, HTS captured 20 towns and villages from pro-government forces. In addition, the 46th Regiment base of government forces was besieged by the HTS and captured a few hours later. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported that 37 Syrian government soldiers and allied militias and 60 fighters from the opposition forces were killed in the clashes. A Russian Special Forces unit was ambushed by rebels, who later posted photos of a dead Russian soldier and captured equipment. Aerial assaults in areas controlled by Syrian and Russian forces launched aerial assaults in areas controlled by rebel groups. Russian fighters conducted airstrikes around Atrib, Derat Izza, and surrounding villages, while government forces shelled rebel-controlled cities in the nearby province. We love a king who commits to his message, Richard. Why are you there, Ruskies? Russia's been fucking squatting on Syria for a long time now. The Syrian rebels have captured around 40 towns and villages in total by the end of the day. Sheesh. There are rumors Ukrainian intelligence agencies are supplying some of the rebel groups with intel. Maybe. They have a shared enemy, but I could see how that could get them in political hot water. Fun to think about, at least. In the early hours of the 30th of November, rebel forces captured the citadel of Aleppo, the government headquarters in the city, as well as, quote, more than half of Aleppo city. Pro-government troops fleeing towards As-Sifira. Rebels captured 39,000 villages. Pro-government forces retreated from most of the Idlib governorate. Not easy to say off the cuff because there are other words that look like that don't sound the same. An airstrike reportedly of Russian origin killed 16 civilians in Aleppo. Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about Russia. Advances towards Hama. And this is all happening right now. Meanwhile, Israel reportedly fired artillery shells at government-held territories near occupied Golan Heights. Pro-opposition TV stations claim that rebels have begun to enter Hana. Local gunmen from Talbise attacked SA. What is Israel leaning on with this? I feel like, if anything, Israel would support Assad over the Sunni Islamist militias. This might be like a case of lesser Hitlers. No, Hezbollah supports Assad? Yeah, but reasonably, if the Sunni forces took over Syria, they would also be anti-Israel. I mean, it could be like an enemy of my enemy is also my enemy thing, you know what I mean? Basically, what I'm saying is that Israel blind firing into Aleppo right now is a 100% chance to kill people they perceive to be, you know, enemies. Israel's statement. So they're doing their own thing right now. Tomorrow will really be the critical day. Will the SAA stand and fight or negotiate? Will the rebels make it to Homs? Will there be a Russian/Syrian air campaign? The Russians seem to be annoyed, flabbergasted with the SAA. Man, that's crazy. Reactions. The Syrian army described it all as a terrorist attack. Yeah, of course they did. Syrian opposition said, yeah, essentially, like, we're the good guys, they're the bad guys. He has to announce the attack. Iran described the offensive as a plot orchestrated by the U.S. and Zionist regime following the regime's defeat in Lebanon and Palestine. All right. Okay. That's a Trump Truth Social kind of take on the situation right there. Like, from their perspective, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's some cope. Turkey says the foreign ministry of Turkey called for an end to the airstrikes in Idlib and demanded that, quote, greater instability is avoided and civilians are not harmed. Yeah, Turkey is playing the impartial card publicly because they're supporting the Syrian militia. So, you know, and Russia said that the offensive was a violation of Syria's sovereignty in the region. Nice. How fucking funny would it be if the utilitarian calculus ended up weighing out in favor of Israel's behavior over the past 18 months being moral, because the weakening of Hezbollah gave the Syrian rebels the power vacuum they needed to oust Assad and take control of Syria, and this brings about like a greater era of peace in the Levant. Is this going to happen? Yes. No, probably not. It would be funny. It's some 5D chess of evil. Oh yeah, surely. There's this picture of a rebel with the most confusing bunch of patches of allegiance. It's interesting. Okay, I don't think this is a recent photo. They're not kind to ISIS over there. Still incredibly funny. Hell yeah, man. Bro belongs everywhere. Got the damn broccoli haircut and mustache that's so popular with guys in their early 20s these days. Peronista. I'm always on top. This is what peace and unity in the Middle East looks like, by the way. You may not like it, but I'm 16. I want to get political. Me after accessing the internet for the first time in in like Eastern Syria and developing my political ideology. Da 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 da. What was your first political ideology? Well, ISIS was coming up at the time that I was in high school, so, you know, there was a trend. There was a fad. Let me see this. Can I get, like, any recent direct statements from al-Julani that are not just him saying, please don't hurt any flies in Aleppo? I'm sure the full Frontline interview was interesting. I don't think there's much apart from official statements. Dude's kind of busy. Not gonna lie, I'm pretty curious to see what kind of videos he was putting out in, like, tax policy. Remember? When he was like, hey, here's how we're going to reach the local neighboring villages. That does get me curious, but, you know, probably not that interesting, and also probably not translated into English. Well, I hope not, K Comrade Robin Hood. The main worry that I have with regards to the like truce holding is that Turkey doesn't like the Kurds. You know? Maybe, hold on, what if there's a good outcome to this? What if Turkey believes that if the Assadist regime falls and this new one takes, you know, this new one takes hold, and they're able to maintain some kind of truce with the Kurds, what if Turkey could see that as like if Syria is stable, we could incentivize the Kurds to go and live over there, you know? Like, rather than this constant, endless, fruitless effort to dispossess the Kurds within our own country, what if having like a bastion of Kurdish power in Syria, you know, could keep them out of our hair? Al Jazeera exclusive, him splitting from Al Qaeda. I just want to see him talk, I guess.
Now then, Al Jazeera has obtained exclusive video of the former leader of Al-Nusra Front confirming the group's split from Al-Qaeda. Abu Muhammad al-Jilani appears in vision for the first time to announce his group's name has also changed to Jabhat Fath al-Sham, or the Front for Liberation of al-Sham. It follows earlier reports that the leader of al-Qaeda had approved the split so the Nusra Front could concentrate.
Very wishful thinking. Yeah, well, there's been a lot of negative stuff happening lately. Maybe I want to be a little optimistic.
On their fight.
الجهاد عامة ونخص بالشكر الشيخ الدكتور أيمن الظواهري حفظه الله ونائبه الشيخ أحمد حسن أبو الخير حفظه الله نشكر لهم موقفهم في تقديم مصلحة أهل الشام وجهادهم وثورتهم المباركة وتقديرهم لمصالح الجهاد العامة.
I could be reading too much into it, but he's reading a statement about breaking from Al-Qaeda. It's just interesting to me that he's wearing what is effectively like Western military garb while doing it. You know what I mean? Like, the men to his left and his right are dressed in a much more like kind of like regionally distinct way, and he's wearing just standard fatigues, which were, you know, introduced in Western military use and kind of became a worldwide thing after that. Yeah. It's to his benefit. I mean, obviously, like if this is going to go anywhere, he's going to have to no longer be considered and treated as a you know, like a terroristic entity. The Turks literally said they'd support him if he broke from Al-Qaeda. Erdogan has actually made some tepid gestures towards reconciliation with the Kurds recently. It could be a sign. Well, we'll see, I suppose. Fate and fortune have not been kind to Kurdish people. Yeah, they've been bombing Kurds for a while, Skynet. It's from yesterday? No, I know. I'm just saying it's been going on for a while. All right, well, we'll see how things develop, I suppose. Hopefully he succeeds. Somebody said that apparently he's made another game. Who said this? Maybe they got muted for it. A lot of people getting muted. The mutings will continue until people stop exclusively engaging with chat by tagging me. Alleged coup in progress in Damascus? Really? Attempted coup d'etat taking place in Damascus. Sounds of gunfire were heard in the Syrian capital Damascus on Saturday night. Speculation grew. This is very like speculative. That's been debunked. They were fighting rebel sleeper cells. Well, that's also pretty significant, but yeah. You would need like people breaking off from the pro-government forces for it to be like a coup definitionally. Yeah, we'll have to wait a day. There could be some good here, not just for Syria, but also for Ukraine. You know? The ruble, someone just posted in chat, reminded me, the ruble's down right now by a good amount. If like instability in Syria reflects really poorly on Russia, because this is basically like Russia's most aggressive colonial holding, you know, outside obviously of what's happening in Ukraine. I guess you could argue like what's happening in Georgia, but Georgia's, you know, they're having their own fuss right now. The ruble is down. You know, this is happening right now in Syria. It could speak towards a larger trend. Could be good. Then again, Russia did just buy America, so. Have faith, Richard. The Turkish proxy faction, the SNA, is trying to take Kurdish-held areas in northern Aleppo, but they've been getting smashed. Well, that's good. I mean, they'd effectively be breaking the cohesion of their little, like, truce. I'm tired, boss, but sure, nothing's over till it's over. Oh, for sure, Richard Hannay. I mean, it's not really... It's not just a matter... Like, Russia has been making advances in Ukraine lately, for sure. Slow, grinding advances by the standard of what's happening in Syria, but still, you know? That being said, a lot of, I guess, Russia's ability, the posture as it has, is kind of... I mean, it's built on their being recognized as this undefeatable like this petro state with its arms everywhere, you know, arms everywhere, soldiers everywhere, Cold War era guns everywhere. I don't know. I mean, it could do a little bit to destabilize, to break confidence. But I mean, look, plus side, maybe this will be over soon, because when Trump takes office, he'll just sell Ukraine. Like he'll sell it to Russia, and no one will know what that means, but that'll probably be the end of things. Vosh, these guys are all terrorists. These guys are terrorists. Come on, Vosh, come on, man. These guys are literally al-Nusra. They are not peaceful and not rebels. Come on, this Jubilee guy is a terrorist. Vosh, these dudes are terrorists. Guy who believes that terrorists can't be rebels. And rebels can't be... Guy who thinks these are mutually exclusive categories. Somebody hasn't read One Piece. Somebody hasn't read Theory. This Jubilee guy is dangerous. Is this like a bot? Probably not. He's an Assadist. It's one guy in Damascus, holding up like a little hand, you know, like radio tuner, trying to get the signal to his computer, furiously typing. Very possible, no joke. You Baathist fucks aren't getting to me. Tulsi Gabbard Cotton VGG. Tulsi! Don't you have something better to do? Aren't you going to be the director of national intelligence? Tulsi's drinking heavily tonight. Man, I really hope that Giuliani is chill on the religion front. I expect, like, look, the majority of Syrians are Muslim. I expect any leadership in Syria to also be Muslim. I'm not stupid. But there's a huge difference between, you know, Sunni, like Ismailist militiamen who is Muslim and uses that as a rallying cry, but isn't like, you know, that religiously motivated, and a guy who turns into a freak as soon as he gets the chance. Did I say Ismailist? I am like, every time I open my mouth to talk, a 2-pound log of partially digested mashed potatoes, turkey, stuffing, mac and cheese, such and such, like makes, like, threatens. Like, I'm fighting, okay? It's a difficult job. Rojava has denounced al-Jilani. Farhad Shami, press spokesman for the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, has made a statement saying the SDF will defend the people against Hayat Tahrir al-Shams, HTS. Today, HTS entered the city of Aleppo, killing civilians and shelling Aleppo's university. There are increasing concerns about the safety of the civilians in the Kurdish neighborhoods of Esrefai and Shasmeksud in Aleppo, and fears that the Turkey-backed Syrian National Army will use the cover of the HTS operation to attack Kurdish forces. Well, this is old, I think. By one day. This was before the truce. They thought that HTS would try to take the Kurdish areas. Well, that's good. That's good. Okay. So this is prior to the more moderated statement. One day old. I mean, yeah, one day old can be a very long time. Hopefully things remain stable. I generally trust the decision-making and judgment of the Kurdish people. You know, I shouldn't say the Kurdish people like in an ethnocentric sense. I mean, like the Rojavans. So hopefully they are correct in their assessment that they can work with HTS. Okay, I think the history 123 history guy might actually be a Baathist bot, so I'm just going to ban them. Nothing more frustrating when somebody comes in with a bit and you respond to the bit, but then they keep doing the bit as though you hadn't responded to it. You know, you have to engage with it. You have to evolve over time. Otherwise, you're just like a bot, you know? The most nationalist Turkish party has pivoted on the Kurdish question very recently. They are now open to hearing talks from Abdullah Öcalan, aka Rojava's thought leader. Is it dangerous to hope? Is it dangerous to hope that this might actually mean like a new promise? Not of peace necessarily, but like of opportunity for the Kurdish people? That Assad might spend the rest of his days in Moscow drinking himself to death while in Damascus, you know, coalition like Sunni and Kurdish forces do like a little jig? That might be a little bit too optimistic. The Kurds will probably remain mostly in the east, but still. It's not delusional, actually. There's a cynical reason for Erdogan to pivot on the Kurds, and it's to split his domestic opposition. Man, I hope so. I hope it, even if it's for some cynical political bullshit, you know? I hope. I guess, like, in the long run, Israel might end up not supporting this, but keeping their hands off it because they just want to make Iran angry, too. Iran fucking hates the Kurds. So I guess maybe in the long run, like, oh, there's so many, like, enemy of my 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 friends. Map of the current land bridge to Aleppo the SDF created. Al-Bab. Whoop. Yeah, doesn't this reflect in the... No, it doesn't. Okay, so this is where they created the... They went through Maskana then, and this just hasn't been updated on the map. Like, they've just created a little land bridge. So the SDF already had a holding here. and they've created a bridge to their broader forces. Man, try refreshing the page. I don't think they've updated it that recently. No. Would be nice, though. Is it dangerous to hope? The map is not up to date. Live UA people have complained the SAA are retreating too quickly to map them out. That's a good problem to have. We're going to wake up tomorrow morning, refresh the map, and there's going to be like one red dot right here. An enclave surrounded by yellow and green. Very real. Truth nuke. Ha! You don't have the emote anymore. Fuck you. And you're not getting it either. You took it? Yeah, I took it. People were just using it as a generic explosion emote. You people... You don't even know. You don't even know. All right. I don't think there's much else I can say on this. It's very exciting in the sense that, you know, Syria has been a hotbed of... I mean, it's just been fucking depressing, really, you know? Also, I've always wanted to go to Cyprus. So if we can get peace in Syria, that would make me feel more comfortable over here, basically. New record, high Russian casualties. Ha! Caught the link before you got nuked for it. By the way, there's a lot of Turkish trolls who Rojava pro-Assad. Who Rojava pro-Assad? What do you mean? SDF are pro-Assad? Who on earth would believe the SDF are pro-Assad? Like what? Who's saying this? It's an utterly incomprehensible statement. Does anyone buy that? They're like, I have never looked at TV or the internet or read a book, and I'm illiterate and blind and deaf. I'm Helen Keller and all my limbs have been chopped off. Oh, the SDF are pro-Assad? I believe it. Where would you have to be? Helen Keller jokes, bro, what year is it? It's not a Helen Keller joke. I'm just referring a person with the crippling disabilities that would be necessary to believe that the SDF are pro-Assad. It's idiotic, but Turkish nationalists can always be dumber. Don't say that. Now there are going to be a bunch of wolves howling at the moon emojis in the comment section on this YouTube video. It's fucked. It's already over. Oh, man. Turkish flag does go hard, though. I do think it's quite pretty. You wouldn't get it, WPG Squirrel. I think that if you look at a like digital image of the Turkish flag, it's ugly. But if you see it in motion on like a real flag, it looks quite nice. Oh shit, I hope so, Kowalski. Hope it was a good pick. Oh, the people in chat, the reason why you're all getting muted so much is because as a consequence of me spending 5 years talking directly to so many people in chat, a lot of you like exclusively post to talk to and tag me, which is deleterious both to the chat culture and also to my mental health, and I hate you. It's mostly just like, look, okay, the mutings will continue until you all behave normally. Also, people tend to drop links to like say, hey, talk about this in the middle of another segment, and that's just fucking annoying. Like, that's just antisocial. You can't do that, you know? Unironically though, I think if you look at like the chat over the past few streams and compare it to like a chat from a month ago, there's a lot more engagement proportional to the people here, because the disincentivization to like throwing fucking links and always just talking to me, you know, you have to talk around. Maybe you need a stream etiquette segment. No, well, no. Gotta mute. All right. Holy shit. My voice is gonna go if I talk too much. 1 second. Water? It's not a water issue. I'm definitely just plain sick. Just a little cold. It's definitely not COVID. Symptoms are too mild. That was like 10 seconds. No need to upload that. Just a sec.
Pull ideas from everywhere, because at its essence.
Nope.
Welcome to Pod Save America. I'm
Nope. All right, let me take a piss. We got to take a look at this one. I can't wait to show you guys the Black Friday deals I snagged. I won't be able to buy anything for a little while, that's for sure. Gotta take advantage of it. Got some great vintage thrifting as well. I want to see them. Well, they have to arrive first. I got a honest to God M43 military jacket, which isn't super impressive because, like, you know, there's a million of them, more than a million of them. But I like it, and it's mine. Tell me more about how you threw your money away. Why are you being mean to me? What did I do? What did I do? It's so difficult to find, like, authentic M43s because there are so many recreations out there. Not that I'm anti-recreation. Mine was definitely authentic. I think it looks really nice. But it's still drying. It's still hung up drying right now after I washed it. Yeah. Nice, I snagged a thermal from Imogene and Willie. Nice! I've had my eye on their thermals. I like them. I also found a really nice Grenfell jacket from the 50s. Pretty well put together for something made 75 years ago. Oh, you found that at a brick and mortar store? Yeah. I mean, I guess my military jacket would have been from the 40s, but not necessarily, but probably. It looks like it was from the 40s. Shit's probably going to outlive me. Was the M43 surplus or used? Look, I'll say this much. The M43 that I got looks used. Got like knots tied in the drawstring cords around the waist and the hip. You know? Bunch of fraying on basically everything it could possibly fray on. Wonder if that shit actually saw, like, service in World War II. Could be. Haunted jacket. Well, it's the M43, so it's less, you know, it's not one of the Vietnam variants. No bullet holes in the jacket. All right. M43 jacket saw service in the VA. I know, but like, what if we pretended that it didn't? Ooh, nice teddy bear. Good get. Yeah, it's like all men's fashion, Gravel Queen. It's workwear and military wear. All right, folks. You know, normally I don't keep up with this, you know, this like back and forth thing, but considering how much time we spent in the previous episode, y'all know about pod saves? Guess who they had on? The second best leftist live streamer in his best oversized fit here. Looking good. If you didn't see the last segment, you kind of have to, by the way, because I'll be referencing it a bunch. Insane. They basically had a bunch of Kamala Harris's consultants on, and these people are all like, they go back and forth between working for the Democrats and working for corporations as consultants, and they had no idea why they lost, and they took no responsibility for losing, and it was infuriating. It was completely infuriating, you know? Just absolutely insufferable.
John Lovett, and guest hosting with me today is the massively popular streamer Leftist Dumbass himself. You just self-described.
That's okay, sure, fair. I say himbo, but damn.
Okay. HASAN Piker, welcome back.
It's good to be back. Thank you for having me.
After my conversation,
I like Hazan's fit. I do too. That's probably a cotton poplin work shirt, hence the two front pockets, and a very oversized, I'm guessing, chino. I don't know if those are double knee. I can't really see, but they look good.
HASAN Piker, welcome back.
It's good to be back. Thank you for having me.
After my conversation with HASAN, you'll hear my conversation with Seth Moulton. We talked about the Democratic Party. We talked about the controversy over his comments around trans athletes. Also on the feed right now, you can hear Dan's conversation with Jen O'Malley Dillon, Quentin Fulks, David Plouffe, and Stephanie Cutter about what went wrong in the Harris campaign. We're having a bunch of conversations about what we learned from the election, where we go from here, with a bunch of different voices, one of which is here today. People are mad that we talked to the Harris campaign. People are mad we're talking to you. People are mad.
I don't know if I intend to watch this whole thing, by the way, but I do want to get a feel for it. And
that's okay.
Yeah.
But let's start with this.
There's Big Tent.
It's a big tent. It's a big tent. All right.
Got Dick Cheney in it.
It's got Dick Cheney in it. It's got HASAN Piker in it.
Yeah.
It's got Dan Osborne in it. It's got Seth Moulton in it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, Tent shouldn't maybe feature Dick Cheney in it, but you know, everybody else I can have a conversation with.
Great. All right. Now, look, the main pastime on the left, other than being mad for the last few weeks, is everyone saying how right they were all along about Democrats being out of touch and bound to lose.
Arrest me. Sorry. So I sat at this chair. Well, maybe not at this chair, but I had the offline interview with John. I think a month before the election. And a lot of the concerns that I brought up to him, it seemingly came across as somewhat prescient, where people people went back to the footage, and I've been seeing comments that were rather positive about, like, you know, okay, he said a lot of stuff there that was objectively correct seeming.
Yeah, I want to talk about one aspect of that, which is that you were saying, others were saying that, hey, like Trump going on Rogan, Trump going on Theo Von, like something is happening here, and we need to understand it. We need to address it. It's real. And I remember, like, my experience, it's like seared in my mind of Trump being on Joe Rogan because of how, like, my path of understanding it. Because what I saw first were a bunch of people taking clips and saying, wow, Rogan really didn't like Trump. Trump is a mess on this show. He comes across terribly. Rogan was like kind of giving Trump space to hang himself rhetorically. And then I watch it and I'm like, Trump did fucking great in this interview.
Yeah, he's very telegenic. That's the thing that, like, a lot of people...
Yeah, that's the problem with getting your understanding of something like that just from clips. It's that if you're ideologically opposed to it, you're going to go and find the clips. And you have that issue. Both Democrats and Republicans do that, where, you know, they will take, like, a broader, you know, Joe Biden speech and clip, like, a portion of it where he sounds really bad or really old, and then just run with that clip. And likewise with, you know, the Democrats, they'll, like, find one tiny segment of a 3-hour conversation between Donald Trump and Joe Rogan and go like, see, this is really bad. The difference is nobody watches Joe Biden's speeches unless they're already really politically involved. Tens of millions of people watch Joe Rogan. That's the issue. The only thing people see of Joe Biden or Kamala Harris are those clips, because otherwise you would have to sit down and watch a Kamala Harris interview, which is fucking boring. But on the other hand, on the other side of things, you know, people, you don't need to have a career in politics to want to sit down and watch a Joe Rogan Donald Trump interview, or I guess podcast episode. So that gets seen outside the context of those little clips.
Well, I guess refuse to factor in for some weird reason is that, yeah, he definitely rambles on. He likes to call it the weave. And even Joe Rogan made fun of him for that a little bit in the process. But, like, there is something to be said about a relatively telegenic person who is able to portray himself as, I like to call it, honestly dishonest, where, like, everybody knows he's a bit of a scumbag, but he's your scumbag. And he's able to get that across to a lot of people. And
people who don't understand this, like, think of how much, even in my community, people talk about, God, how am I blanking? Please, God, help me. My brain is on fire. Not in the good way. You know, the sleazebag, leftist populist, Everard Clare. Well, yeah, sure, Everard Clare, but I'm thinking of a guy who probably inspired Everard Clare to an extent. Oh, come on, guys. Huey Long! Idiots. Fucking morons. Took me that long to come up with it, and none of you helped me out with the prompt that I gave you.
I don't think that there
I
is...
was stonking.
Really... anyone with that level of television presence on the Democratic Party front. I think, like, the most skilled orator in the Democratic Party's ranks in the last couple of decades was obviously Barack Obama, and outside of that, I think like in a lot of instances, purely from an optics point of view, Democrats track as like technocratic, elitist, too serious about everything that they talk about. And there's certainly a lot of that on the Republican Party side as well. And we've seen failed initiatives from establishment Republicans that tried to recreate the Trump phenomenon with the likes of Ron DeSantis, and that was a massive failure. But ultimately, I think this goes beyond podcasts. This is something that I've been talking about quite frequently. I know the podcast thing is like the most, like that's the one that got everyone's attention. But I said this on CNN last night that you can't really podcast your way out of this problem. Like having, there was that one tweet saying like, "Oh, we just got."
I'm not stealing content, by the way. I'm sorry, Pod Saves. Let me know. Contact me at voshvideo@gmail.com if you want me to take this down. I don't normally do the Twitch thing where I just sit here and watch a video silently. That's more his game, I guess. But I can't interject senselessly. I have to like wait and think and impugn, I guess selectively.
have 100 Pod Save Americas, but they all have to look like Hasan. Like that's not how this works.
Oh, you think that one tweet might have been wrong? But the yeah, like I guess so. I agree with that.
You wouldn't copyright a guy with a sore throat, would you?
Kind of like, I don't know, like just have had this devastating loss to Trump, and everybody's looking for these sort of little explanations that all feel like they just feel silly. Like, oh, we need a Joe Rogan of the left, and even saying like I don't even want to talk about how stupid that is anymore because even that has become stupid. But I do agree that like people are like, oh well, she should have gone on Rogan. All right, yeah, sure. I think so too.
That would not have changed the outcome of this election.
There's a larger problem to what you're getting at, which is like, why don't we have figures and where like we think they would do great on that show? And why is someone like Joe Rogan now, who was 4 years ago open to Bernie, now suddenly open to Trump? Like that's the deeper.
Well, Joe Rogan is 100% like right-wing captured media. He was bragging the other day, I mean yesterday, about not letting Zelensky on the show. And this guy, he's fully bought into the like Kremlin talking points of like, you know, Ukraine is an enemy of America. They steal our money, yada, yada, which is all just factually incorrect. But he's fully like a right wing. He's not a right wing plant because he's been there the whole time. But he understands where the winds have blown. He has always been a disingenuous piece of shit. He was hugely disingenuous on COVID. Remember in COVID where he was very strict and very specific about making sure the people around him were immunized. They had the vaccines. He always had his place like cleaned really, really, really thoroughly because he was paranoid about the virus. And then he would start a show and play it all off and downplay it because he wanted to be like a manly bro. You know, like a manly man, like, whatever, who cares, you know? He's always been like a huge piece of shit like that. Not necessarily in a right-leaning way, but just like in a self-serving way. And it is now more self-serving to be like right-wing partisan, you know? I think Kyle Kulinski said he's now more like, he's not a comedian anymore. He's just a right-wing partisan. He's more like, what do you say, Rush Limbaugh than he is George Carlin. And that's so fucking true. Kyle totally on about it.
Problem, like you look at like successful Democratic messengers or progressive messengers over the last like decades, and you think, all right, well, Bill Clinton obviously was successful and he like ran against the Democratic Party in some way. Barack Obama did the same thing. Bernie does the same thing. AOC does the same thing. I'm not talking about on policy.
You don't mean it like also in the same direction of running against?
No, but running against the establishment in some way. And just saying, and the reason I connect them is because they all did something which is demonstrated that they were not part of the Democratic establishment, both like on policy and rhetorically, right? Like that's what they all did. And I'm just wondering like what, like the one place where like I know you like find, you know, there's a place where there's like kind of an alignment of like the Seth Moulton critique of the Democratic Party and the lefty critique of the Democratic Party, which is just like, it's fucking annoying and like kind of, I don't know, like pedantic in some way.
It's an incorrect interpretation, an incorrect autopsy to look back at a thing that the Democratic Party did not do at all and then say it's actually that reason. It's not anything that we did so far. It's not that we tacked to the right over and over again, despite people like myself and many others saying like, don't do this. You're going to hemorrhage the base. You're going to hemorrhage the base of support. You are going to cut away at your turnout. You're going to cut across many different constituencies that you rely on to create an effective coalition. And it's a very dangerous gamble to assume that you can decouple a lot of these people in the suburbs, a lot of like white women specifically, away from the Republican Party and vote for you instead. I know that they're high propensity voters, but it doesn't matter. There's still plenty of low propensity voters that you have to rely on to win. And that's precisely what the Democratic Party did. They hyper-focused on these key constituencies, despite the fact that polls were seemingly deadlocked after $30 million of ad spend in key.
What's that Schiff quote? For every such and such we lose in Appalachia, in West Virginia, we'll pick up 2 such and suches. In Pennsylvania, was it Schumer? Yeah, Schumer, not Schiff. Yeah, for every like I don't know, populist, working class populist we lose in West Virginia will gain 2 like moderate former Republicans in Pennsylvania. You know, statements dreamed up by the utterly deranged.
Key suburbs, right? Like it showed, at least for, I said this time and time again, it showed someone from the outside looking in that the message was not working. And you can have the best ground game possible.
Here's a Schumer clip. Yeah, fill me with rage.
For every, this is the second point, for every blue-collar Democrat we will lose in Western PA, we will pick up 2, 3 moderate Republicans in the suburbs of Philadelphia. And you can repeat that in Ohio and Illinois and Wisconsin.
It's just like, yeah, play this on loop forever. This is how you break me, okay? When they detain us in the, you know, Viet Cong POW camps and try to get us to divulge American secret, like it's just play this clip on loop. I'll tell you anything you need to know. Insane, genuinely insane. Why the fuck are you okay with losing blue-collar Democrat? Yeah, no, like the opening premise is psychotic as well. The idea like, yeah, I have a strategy. It begins with us losing the working class, like the 99%. But don't worry, we'll moderate our views enough that we pick up former Republicans. Comes across as very elitist. Yeah, and it's Senator Schumer, so it is. It absolutely is. Because Senator Schumer belongs to the exact same economic and social class as any Republican senator, as Donald Trump, as any of those people. There is no that he agrees with them on a lot. He shares their company. He just occupies a different political position. That's it.
You can have, you know, hundreds of thousands of people all across the country door knocking. But if the top-down message...
Schumer gets less heat than Pelosi's argument. Schumer's 100% worse than Pelosi because at least she's fucking pragmatically minded when the chips come down. Like, Pelosi has, for everything that's wrong with her, and there's a lot wrong with her, at points demonstrated, like, a sincere desire to win and a dedicated, almost like cutthroat attitude towards getting it done, which I respect.
That you're communicating is not resonating with people, then you're not going to be able to win an election. You're not going to have the effective turnout necessary to win this election. And that is precisely what happened. Now, does that mean that Trump's messaging was good? Of course not. It wasn't. It was actually pretty bad. And I would even go so far as to say the anti-trans ads were actually a distraction and not good. It was only effective in the DC bubble, I think, and the consultant bubble and the media class that saw those ads and were like, oh my God, this is an incredible ad. Like, they really ruined Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris had a silly answer to an ACLU questionnaire, okay? That just shows that she is not the most experienced politician. This was all the way back in, I believe, 2020, right? She literally had to drop out of the primary anyway at that time. That's one thing, okay? But that should not be a campaign killer. If you personally think that that's a campaign killer, then your campaign is weak. This message across the board should never be able to end a single campaign. Then Teflon Don is real.
One of the compelling explanations that I've heard about why things went down the way they did is that because Joe Biden waited so late to drop out and there wasn't a primary, Kamala Harris never had a chance to really aggressively define herself on a new set of principles. And by not talking about trans issues or any of the social issues, by instead focusing like deliberately not ever mentioning them, all people had in their mind was like an amalgam of her doing and saying nothing under Joe Biden, making her effectively like an avatar of his, and also of the 2020 primary. Even if she had disingenuously shifted right since the 2020 primary, the fact that she had barely any time at all to get her positions, you know, runabout, definitely hurt her. I mean, the fact that Joe Biden ran again at all was like the death knell. That was like the funereal bell ringing, you know? Donald Trump won the election as soon as he entered himself into the 2024 race. Maybe some insane shit could have happened to have changed the route, the path at that point, but by that point I feel like we were pretty locked in. you know?
I mean, the man had the grab him by the pussy tape come out as the October surprise in 2016, and he still won. And since then, there's been a litany of different controversies, including but not limited to straight up undermining American democracy by doing January 6th. And yet people are still
liberal
voting for him. And one must ask the question, why? And I think overall, the same exact problems that persisted in 2016 when the economy was seemingly very good, right? Especially as opposed to like the post-COVID economy and its recovery. People were still very frustrated with what was going on. The notion that in the wealthiest nation on earth, we have 600,000 people sleeping outside every night. The idea that we have the concept of medical bankruptcy is an insane.
Holding to my position, by the way, that these two issues might contribute to the Democrats' loss more than anything. Everyone knows Democrats are responsible for our major cities because major cities tend to be left-leaning and thereby they vote Democrats. And all of our major cities are crumbling and decaying. Filthy, horrible, more and more homeless people every single year. And yeah, with regards to the medical bankruptcies, Democrats aren't even offering any real change when it comes to that. At least Republicans have the benefit of like gesturing at some greater economy or whatever. You know, Donald Trump, who has no plan for healthcare apart from making sure you die for lack of it, you know, he gestures at some change. Whereas with the Democrats, you know, you're getting effectively the same thing. Sure, you get like a Medicaid or Medicare, like lowered cost of drug negotiation that takes effect 2 years after it was set for some reason that Trump will take credit for. But altogether, yeah, like it's a status quo thing. As always, it's a status quo thing. And yeah, the fact that our cities are filthy does not make the Democrats look good. You go to literally any other city, just any other city in the developed world. And I mean that. You can go anywhere. Is Paris filthy? Yeah, but at least it's interesting. As opposed to basically every American city, which is filthy and boring and ugly. Paris is filthy and interesting. Pretty, like, big win on that one. If you might find filthy cities elsewhere, but you will not find ones with as much homelessness. And what's more, they tend to have more shit to do in them. You can go fucking anywhere, okay? You can go to Italy, you can go to Spain, you can go to Hungary, okay? You can go anywhere, you go to Budapest, okay? If you're going to like any city in the West that is decently large, you will have a better time than just exploring an American city, with the exceptions of New York and possibly Chicago. Thank you.
Phenomena that doesn't exist in any other OECD nation. Like the fact that 40% of the American public don't, or 60% of the American public doesn't have $400 in emergency spending. Like
maybe DC. No, DC is filthy. DC is filthy and has a huge homelessness issue. What are you guys talking? No. I'm not engaging on this with you, okay? Fuck
These
off.
are all very real economic anxieties. I'm using that term specifically because, you know, it's one thing that people like to hyper focus on that creates volatility, that creates instability, and it creates a
DC is a lot cleaner than New York City. Are you crazy? I wasn't comparing it to New York City, you fucking troglodyte. I was comparing it to the broader standard, the norm around the world. Go to Tokyo and then come back to any American city and talk to me about cleanliness. It is insane what we put up with here. You just said New York City was good. I said New York City was interesting, like a real city.
A base of angry people, and if the Democratic Party is not addressing that anger and addressing their material problems and earnestly telling them like we're gonna fix that shit, okay, and the other side is looking at that anger and saying we're gonna channel your anger, you have every right to be angry, and you know who you should be angry
I didn't
at?
care for Tokyo, but then I just randomly use Google Maps to street view a random street and it's spotless. Fucking insane, the comparison. Yeah, genuinely, yeah. It's like part of it is horrendous democratic governance. Part of it is the fact that we spend 110% of every city's budget on police. Part of it is the fact that we have literally no care for walkability, so our cities are all like trash havens and streets and highways and so on and so forth. Part of it's a cultural thing. We're over in Tokyo, if you litter, like in public, everyone turns towards you and they stare at you until you commit ritualistic Sudoku. And in America, you can toss fucking you know, McDonald's wrappers out the side window or whatever, and no one gives a shit, and you'll never get punished for it no matter what. No cop will ever harass you for littering. It doesn't matter. Sudoku? He said Sudoku instead of seppuku. What a quirky mistake. Bet he's the first guy to do that.
Those who have less than you. You know who you should be angry at? The working poor, the homeless people that are doing crimes left and right, black and brown people, undocumented migrants that are doing incredible amounts of crimes. They're killing hundreds of thousands of Americans, and trans people. And the Democratic Party only cares about those people and they don't care about you. And that message resonates with a base of support, not because they are intrinsically evil. That message resonates with a base of support because they're angry, and one of the two major parties is not even remotely interested in addressing that anger and trying to tell them what the solution to that anger actually is and what the real problem is.
But my stats... but my Pell Grants, but my charts that you need a bachelor's degree in statistics to understand that say that actually things are doing better. You mean politics means addressing people's feelings? You mean popularity? Man, the way Republicans act, they treat politics like it's just a popularity contest. Actual lines that I hear from liberals, by the way. I'm glad that HASAN is going on there doing this. You know, Pod Save is a radlib bastion, or at least it has been historically. It seems like it's kind of been the focal point of the post-election discourse, where people go to, you know, like the past two episodes, we're getting a distinct set of perspectives. If HASAN coming on here, maybe some consultant listens to this, clearly they went on it, so it's listened to by the kinds of people who then go on to advise Democratic campaigns. It's rough, man. We need to get the message out there.
So I want to like break that into kind of how we like the Democratic brand, how we message and all, but also like on the policy front. So Joe Biden wins. He tries to kind of build consensus with
Thanks
Bernie.
for the
He brings in AOC. He goes to the left on antitrust. He does the Inflation Reduction Act. He does a post-COVID relief bill. He cancels as much debt as he can legally, even though the court is trying to stop him. Mm-hmm. Like before the last year, like what my view of this is Joe Biden, this consensus Democrat, right? Actually to the right of the consensus for most of his career, kind of somebody that had to be kind of pulled to where the party was going, did something extraordinary, which is he adapted, he changed, he governed in a much more progressive way than I think probably like than I expected. I hope that you expected.
Oh, absolutely.
And it seems as though like that like whether it's because people didn't feel it or people didn't believe it or the way Democrats talk about policy is ineffective, like it didn't seem to matter in terms of how people viewed like the Democratic response to the economy, right? They were so angry about inflation. They were angry about a bunch of other issues, and it really didn't matter what Joe Biden said or what Kamala Harris said. They were held responsible. And I'm just wondering how you explain that, right? Like, it seems as though Joe Biden tried to listen to this exact critique, and it didn't matter.
So yes and no.
I mean, again, part of this is like you're doomed from the start kind of deal, because Joe Biden was so incapable of expressing his positions that he famously lost the debate to Donald Trump. Like, yeah, low bar. It's people don't understand. Like, if you are trying to make a case for your politic, for your candidacy in an era of populist anger, you need to be really aggressive in labeling an enemy. And the Democrats don't like it when you go after the corporations directly, because they provide money to the Democratic Party. But the Democrats don't even make an enemy of the Republicans. They exceptionalize Donald Trump by treating the Republican Party as something that's just been captivated by Trump, and Trump is this like angry idiot. No. The Republican Party and Trump are as one, a unified front. Trump is just the ego man at the front. In reality, all of them are fully committed to the dismantling of our institutions. Yeah, they don't treat it as like an endemic issue. They don't want to call out Republicans. Why not? Blame someone. Things are going wrong. People want someone to blame. And here's the nice part, you know? Republicans understand this, and they've been blaming all kinds of people, immigrants, trans people. They have to lie to do so. If you blame Republicans for things going wrong, you'd be right. A lot of the problems that we've been suffering from, a lot of the worsening social trends, are a direct consequence of like laissez-faire neoconservative deregulation under Reagan. Now, you don't have to get that specific and wordy about it, but you can certainly gesture at at the very least, you can talk about it. You can talk about Republicans, their obsession with deregulation, our failing infrastructure, our social systems. You can talk about these things. But Kamala Harris didn't want to make an enemy of Republicans. In fact, she was bragging about wanting to be more conciliatory towards them than Joe Biden was. It's pathetic. Who's going to get fired up at that? Who in God's green earth is going to wake up angry at their life and their surroundings and then get motivated to vote for somebody who's saying that they're not even that against their opponent? Ridiculous.
Well, I do agree. There are plenty of things that Joe Biden did, like beefing up the NLRB and letting the FTC rain hell upon these monopolies.
Which, again, no one talks about, so it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter if you do something. It only matters if you're able to make an effective campaign out of something, which you have to be pretty online to be focusing on, like Lena Khan, you know, and all the good shit that she's done. You know, you have to be pretty engaged.
There's two issues there, though. One is, I think, something that you will agree with as well, that the Democrats don't campaign year-round in the same way that Republicans do on key issues, and they do have a massive communication problem. That could potentially be solved by having a more robust ecosystem and more collaboration with even the likes of yourself and maybe even someone like myself as well. And they need to always be on. They need to always be counter-messaging against the anti-immigration sentiment. I went back and looked at my commentary from February of 2021 when the story of the Customs and Border Patrol Haitian migrants getting whipped by horseback Customs and Border Patrol people,
I remember,
officers was in the news. And I remember talking about how the Republicans are going to keep hitting the immigrants are doing crime note over and over again because that's the one thing that they have. And it's built around a complete falsehood that undocumented migrants are responsible for incredible amounts of crime. It's not correct. There is no data to suggest this. The data actually shows the exact opposite. Undocumented migrants are your neighbors. They contribute to the economy in very meaningful ways, and they very rarely take anything in return. Why is the Democratic Party not pushing this counter narrative? And they never did. Instead of pushing that counter narrative, which is based in truth, and talk about how undocumented migrants are responsible for less crime per capita than natural born U.S. citizens are, or that fentanyl being trafficked across the U.S. borders are actually not coming in the knapsack of a otherwise law-abiding abuela, but instead it's coming from regular points of entry trafficked by American citizens. 90% of the people that are being apprehended for chemical compounds necessary for fentanyl or direct drugs that they're trafficking across the border are American citizens. Like,
sure.
This does not track with the narrative that people believe.
Yeah, Democrats just flat up gave up on all of that. They didn't. Not only did they not aggressively push for these points, they didn't even mention it. They took the opposite points. They kowtowed to the narrative. They started talking about how, you know, they've reduced the number of crossings and how they are going to crack down on fentanyl making its way through the country, and they're going to be like the security, you know, the border bill that they try to get passed as a bipartisan consensus, which Trump then shot down because he wanted to campaign on the issue. It ended up not even mattering because, like, anyone who's concerned about immigration enough that they'd vote for it is going to vote for Republicans because they're the most aggressively anti-immigrant, you know? No one's voting for 99% Hitler if the thing they like about the thing they're looking for in the candidate is anti-Semitism. They're going to vote for the 100% Hitler.
Because the narrative is dominated by the right on this issue. They should have been counter-messaging against that, and they should have been putting bills forward in defense of the moves that, for example, Governor Greg Abbott was engaging in Ron DeSantis. I said this even back then.
And they should have been way the fuck more aggressive in attacking Republicans across the aisle on this too. Like, you know, accuse Republicans of being pro-fentanyl abuse because they shut down clinics and they defund aid organizations, and because they are redirecting people's attention away from the actual culprits, you know? Go after everything. Go find of citizens that have been arrested for trafficking fentanyl, of police departments who have been broken up or have been investigated for collaborating to allow fentanyl to come through the border or to get cuts from the cartel or whatever else. Like, make an issue of all of it. Paint a narrative of, I would say, largely correct narrative, by the way, of Republicans actively undermining the country at every end because they know that if the government fails the people, they'll vote in the privateers. They'll vote in the people who come in and deregulate everything and give it to the corporations. Accuse Republicans of being maliciously, at best, incompetent and at worst, like, obstructionist, in an effort to worsen people's lives so they can campaign on the issue. But they don't wanna. Yeah. Democrats don't propose bills unless they know they can get them through, which is insane. Republicans make bill. Look at Nancy Mace's bill, written in crayon. In all federal buildings, someone should feel your dick and balls or pussy and then tell you what bathroom to use. Signed, Nancy Mace. They'll put that through. They'll put anything through. They don't care. If Republicans shut down a good bill, run on it, campaign on it, do this every single day. Is it tiring? That's what you're paid for. You signed up for it. You were not conscripted into the Senate or House of Representatives. You ran for it.
Then that this is actually a fantastic opportunity for the federal government to show that there is a more tolerant approach, that one, they should have immediately pursued Governor Greg Abbott legally, and arrested him for human trafficking, and tried to prosecute.
Unfortunately, Merrick Garland is literally the biggest pussy on earth, so he didn't do anything because he sucks.
Him for human trafficking. I don't care if it's a constitutional crisis or not. All of this stuff was insanely messed up, and the federal government dropped the ball. I think the Biden administration dropped the ball by not adding additional funds immediately, sending additional funds immediately to places like Chicago and New York, and to figure out a better way to transition a lot of these people and integrate them into the American labor force.
Also, like, I really do think a narrative should have been painted where you juxtapose an earnest, hardworking, undocumented family with someone who really doesn't deserve American citizenship, a Republican politician. You could go so hard with this. Who's really more American? You know, Jose, who lives in South Los Angeles and has been for 16 years, who works tirelessly day in and day out to provide for his family, who has a giant ass American flag, you know, hanging from the wall of the apartment that he and his family of 4 lives in, you know, who works tirelessly to provide for his community and for his family, versus this, like, you know, fat, bloviating, fuck-ass Republican politician in the area who does nothing to help his constituents and exists, it subsides entirely off of, like, kickbacks and local corruption. Who would you rather have as your neighbor, you know? If they ran aggressively on that, and had been for years and years and years and years. Nationalism and patriotism are cringe, though. Yeah, and stay out of government. Sorry, that's how you win. Also, I'm okay with patriotism as long as it's being framed in the context, the right values. To me, an American is someone who lives here. American in spirit. I'm not talking about legality here, you know? But I've been saying this my whole life. I grew up around a fuck ton of undocumented people. I grew up in LA. The people who were doing landscaping in Beverly Hills with the like 23-year-old white pickup trucks, the Fords, they're not documented. No one asks for their papers. We know what the deal is. But those were the hardest working motherfuckers out there. Every guy I went to high school with wanted to grow up to become a DJ. Then I go look outside and some, like, you know, some 4'9" guy who could probably deadlift me, you know, reps 100 times, has been out there landscaping since 6:15 in the morning. And he's got an American flag in his pickup truck. He works harder than I ever will, even if I didn't become a live streamer.
And instead, they just got stuck in this, like, legal limbo for no reason.
So why is it that, okay, so Republicans say they sort of lay all these problems at the feet of undocumented immigrants. They say they're responsible for crime.
Yeah.
No, they're not. But there are obviously undocumented people. They're people, and some are committing terrible crimes, which they then exploit. But for the most part, these are people that not only are committing crimes at a low rate, but actually are unable to go to the police when they're victims of crime.
Yep.
Whether that's a domestic violence, they can't go to the police, or whether that's just sort of the quotidian mayhem of living in America, or a boss taking advantage of you. They can't go to the police, right?
Yeah.
Then they say, oh, well, they don't pay taxes. Actually, that's not true. They pay into Medicare, they pay into Social Security, and they don't get the benefits of it back. And then they say, well, they're driving up.
Have you heard any of this from a Democratic politician over the last 4 years? I remember hearing it from 2016 to 2021. Have you heard any of this from a Democratic politician over the last 4 years?
The cost of housing. I do not believe that undocumented people are the reason a house costs $450,000 where it used to cost $350,000.
Yeah, I didn't realize they were executives at BlackRock. The Guatemala migrants are mass purchasing houses and making sure that everyone's a permanent renter.
Yeah, I love the idea that undocumented migrants are the reason why housing costs are surging in like California, leaving aside the fact that Texas has an enormous number of undocumented immigrants and their housing prices have been holding steady and in some areas actually dropping. Like what? Oh, so it's not them.
That's the point, though. But it's not a trans person that's your landlord. It's not an undocumented immigrant that's your landlord that's raising the cost of rent. It's not, your manager is not an undocumented immigrant.
There are two big problems, though. One is there are a lot of people saying this, and
not the Democratic politicians, and not running on it. They have to say it as loud and as proud as the Republicans are transphobic and such. They have to make it their mission to say this day in and day out all the time, over and over again. That has to be their number one job.
Doesn't break through because there is this right-wing media system that puts out this one story. And the second problem is, like, Democrats really don't have trust on this issue with the people that they're trying to persuade to see it are.
Yeah, but both of these problems are caused by the Democrats, right? The reason it can't pierce the media bubble is because they're not shouting loud enough. And the reason why Democrats aren't thought as trustworthy is because they literally pivoted. Back during Donald Trump's first term, they were aggressively pro-immigrant, pro-DACA, such and such. Then, as soon as Joe Biden stepped in, they dropped all of that and opened up a void for Republicans to fill with their own narrative. They are untrustworthy. Republicans are relatively trustworthy in immigration. I know exactly where they stand on immigration. They fucking hate immigrants. Okay. I believe them. Like that. They've sold me on the consistency of their message. Democrats, not so much.
Way, which I think goes to the point you made before, right? Which is, why is it that Donald Trump can meander around the country rambling, committing what in any other era would be, if not like campaign ending, like campaign harming, ridiculous statements, gaffes, sure, that he can basically be in like a strategic mess, but Kamala Harris has to hit every point exactly right. She
doesn't. That's the thing. It's like you're holding yourself to a false expectation. She doesn't have to hit every point entirely right. She's on the wrong side of the paradigm. It's not about her hitting the points right. Like Kamala Harris has entered into a battle of the bands rock and roll competition, and she showed up with no microphone and a violin. People are here to see rock and roll. She can hit, oh, why are people booing her? She's, played almost perfectly. Yeah, no one's here for violin. And they can't hear her. It's not an electric violin. It's acoustic. The room isn't meant to pick this up. She has a whole set of unused speakers behind her that are just sitting there. Like she's playing the wrong game entirely. You bring a chessboard and you set up, the pieces, and then Kamala Harris shows up and she starts playing checkers and loses. And she's like, well, what the fuck? I played a perfect game of checkers. She's like stacked two kings on top of each other on the other side of the board, like she's like balanced them.
She says the wrong thing on The View, or there's a bad interview from 2020. Those things can be campaign ending. And I think to your point, it goes to something deeper, a kind of a lack of a core vision or motivating mission for the current Democratic Party.
Yeah, something that is an understandable, easy to communicate, simple policy.
I wonder where he got this work shirt from. I feel like it would look really nice. I think these are plastic buttons, not mother of pearl.
That you can put your campaign around. So we agree on the messaging front a little bit, at least, or the asymmetry of how much right-wing media dominates the ecosystem, the media ecosystem in general, all the way from independent outlets down to traditional media, where, as far as I understand it, 73% now, I think, of all news watchers are watching Fox News. 73%.
Cool.
That's an insane percentage.
And again, by the way, why would you not? I have seen countless news clips from ABC, MSNBC, CNN, on and off stream. They are boring. You go there only for information. I've gone there only for information. If something's happening, oh, okay, here. Or maybe like a public official or somebody is getting an interview. Like, okay, well, I'll hear them talk then at the platform they're speaking at. Fox News has a cohesive message that runs. It's not just about like the entertainment factor. They've structured their entire news delivery game around not just keeping you hooked, but presenting like a cohesive platform. On CNN, like, they've got any fucking moron on there. You know, one of the big shows, MSNBC, Joe Scarborough, who bent the knee to Trump the moment he got there. They don't have a cohesive platform at all.
An insane number, right? So outside of that, though, I think here is the disagreement that we will have. That while Joe Biden did a bunch of stuff that I agree was positive, it was simply not enough. And that was something that I was always very critical on as well. If you see a homeless person and you chuck them 2 pennies and they're sitting on the corner of the street, like, yeah, technically their material wealth improved by a percentage, a decent percentage, but he's still going to be mad at you because you just gave him 2 pennies. Why doesn't the homeless person understand that their situation is much better? That is not an effective way to communicate to Americans that, like, no, you don't understand. Inflation is actually under control, that the economy is rebounding, even if it's objective truth. Because
the idea of running on the premise of like, we will make it easier to buy a home because we'll kick you like, what was it, 10, 20,000? When that is like 1% of the cost of a home in a bunch of blue states. 25K? Yeah. Like 1 to 2% the cost of a home. You know? And a tax credit, no less, because they love their tax credits. It's crazy. Like, sorry, I thought the average property value in my neighborhood was $1.24 million, but having that knocked down to $1.215 million is really going to make the difference.
They, like most Americans, don't understand what inflation is, and they don't understand that prices are not going to go down in that circumstance. And besides that, and I factor this is not just the vibe session communications, but I'm also talking about specifically like even the IRA or many of these other like parts of the legislative agenda that Biden.
Never forget, Republicans did more stimulus money than Dems. It's deeply that. Yep, I remember that. And Donald Trump delayed the checks so he could sign them. Donald J. Trump to all of the checks going out, the $2,000 checks. And then once the Democrats came in, not only did they not Joe Biden didn't do that, but also they started arguing about how getting an extra 600 was like the initial promise to get the 2,600 because it was 600 plus the previous 2,000. So actually getting 600 would be a fulfillment of that promise, even though no one was happy with it.
Put forth that was more progressive than I expected, more progressive than even the Obama administration in many respects.
Wasn't it 1,400 plus 600? I'm gonna not lie to you. I don't remember the exact values. I only remember the conflict. Also, my brain is currently basting in gravy.
One, they didn't do a good job of communicating any of those victories, in my opinion. They did not. They did not actually like go to the media regularly to show these victories and to showboat and gloat a little bit. Two, a lot of that was also held up in gridlock because we didn't whip votes well enough within
Sorry, 1,400 initially, it was 1,400 initially, then the 600, and that created the 2,000. Yeah. Democrats were like, we're going to give you 2,000, but then they just gave the 600 to add on top of the 1,400 that was initial. So then they were like, oh, that's 2,000. We're running on giving you 2,000, but by that we mean we're going to give you, was it 600 initially? I don't remember.
Own party, and I think that there was a lot of punishments that should have been dished out to the likes of Joe Manchin and the likes of Kyrsten Sinema, rather than offering a Green senator an opportunity to be a
Okay, yeah, the first one was the 600 that was signed by Donald Trump, and then the 1,400 was the one by the Democrats. There we go. Okay, now I remember. Thank you. And I don't even remember the first one. 1,200 per income tax. I don't remember that.
prominent fixture of the Democratic Party. I think that a lot more punishments should have been issued towards these people that use the moment of the spotlight to specifically play the role of a rotating villain in the Democratic Party, which has happened time and time again, all the way from Joe Lieberman to the Maggie Hassans of the world, the Kyrsten Sinemas, the Joe Manchins of the world, and the problem solvers caucuses within Congress in general. These guys need to get whipped into shape.
Yeah, I wish I believed that. I just wish I believed that. But
think about it.
But I just I don't know how much more you could have gotten out of Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema. Like, Joe Manchin basically was telegraphing the whole time, like I'll walk away. And Joe Biden kept him in the tent. That got judges through. That got the Inflation Reduction Act through. I do not believe
But it didn't matter. It ended up not mattering because he lost the presidency. You know? It doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter, then. I'm glad the Inflation Reduction Act went through, but this is the fundamental issue, right? It's that it seems like why doesn't this happen within the Republican Party? The last time this really happened within the Republican Party was with John McCain shut down Donald Trump's attempt to remove the Affordable Care Act. And John McCain was reviled by the Republicans after that because he broke with the Republicans' actual message. Treason will not be tolerated. Meanwhile, with the Democrats, it's no, we have to coddle all of these, fake Democrats, all these, dinos, basically. Why is it that the Republicans command such loyalty? Why is it that Donald Trump was able to break the entire party, get them all behind him, even the people he directly insulted? Whereas the Democrats, why do they not revile the people within their party who break rank? Why is our coalition more fractious? Why?
I think we agree on a lot. I just don't believe that there is a version of the Joe Biden presidency that could have been more successful on legislative policy. I don't see that.
You're not going to appreciate what I'm about to say then.
Hit me.
Use the IRS and also the SEC and maybe even the FTC to investigate as to why Joe Manchin's brother owns a coal mine and whether there's a conflict of interest there. Investigate why Joe Manchin's daughter is selling pharmaceutical products to the state of West Virginia when Joe Manchin is directly at odds with any sort of bill that passes that would lower the cost of pharmaceuticals.
So you want the president to politicize these agencies?
Yes, they're already politicized. And the mythology that they haven't been is why the Democrats are losing right now. There is no. Do you think they'll be politicized under Republicans? Yes, they were already politicized then. The institution is already politicized.
Use them to go after people.
Because you want to know why?
Tell me why. Tell me why.
Because they're doing it at the behest of not only the American people, their interests.
People will be like, yeah, I'm an FDR liberal. What? Bully and demand feasance from people in my party? That's like Hitler shit. Do you know what FDR did? Are you aware of what FDR had to do to get the kind of public mandate he had? People hated him.
But they're also, and this is probably...
Also, what's the consequence of politicizing the president's regulatory and administrative powers? When the Republicans take over, they're going to do it? Where'd that line of thinking get us? Well, thank goodness. I mean, Joe Biden, or, then Kamala Harris, lost the election, but thankfully, because he was, abstinent in this use of power, the Republicans will be very, very moderate in their use of these organizations.
Going to frustrate everyone in this audience. But here's the thing that I get very frustrated about.
Wide range of listeners across a broad ideological spectrum.
Here's what really frustrates me.
What frustrates you?
The way the Democratic Party operates. They love norms. They love institutions. They love civility. They
Post has gotten kind of hostile over this one. It's very funny, the idea of like when, coal mining magnates and shitty do-nothing senators threaten to ruin the lives of hundreds of millions of people by blocking necessary legislation. It's actually immoral to investigate obvious corruption that they engage in because it would be like mean.
Care about bipartisanship for the sake of bipartisanship, as though that is something that
some do, some don't.
Yeah, sure. But for the most part, the broad communication coming out of the Democratic Party is that these are the things that they care about. These are the top line issues. We got to protect democracy. We got to preserve our institutions. The problem is the other side doesn't give a shit about that. So I think I want a Democratic Party that fights for me and others who are marginalized, other people that like desperately need help. And I know that the Republican Party is never going to do that. I'm not one of those guys who's like, oh, well, at least the Republicans are kind of listening to what I have to say, or are communicating, channeling the anger.
Also, you could like do a really, really, really good job of running on this, right? Like if you were authentically anti-corruption, you could go, wow, what a coincidence, Manchin, big friend of petrol, of oil and gas. Turns out that he's corrupt as shit and his hands in a bunch of, coal mining enterprises. What a coinkydink. Thankfully, corruption like this will no longer be tolerated in our government, which works for the people, by the people. Like, just run with it. If you went after Joe Manchin for being a piece of shit and then didn't go to the media over it and just like let the Republicans fill the void with that narrative, then you'll lose on the narrative. Manchin's daughter raised EpiPen's prices by 1,000. Don't mention that, Benjamin. That's partisanship, to acknowledge that there is an oligarchy in this country where powerful people get away with doing whatever they want. You're telling me the family members of senators get preferential treatment? Are you politicizing politics?
That I feel like I don't care. They're charlatans. They're significantly worse than the Democratic Party. I don't like the Democratic Party for their closeness to the Republican Party. I want them to be a party that actually fights for the working class, for all Americans unconditionally, regardless of ideology. And you can't do that through bipartisanship with an otherwise like hostile entity that is the Republican Party. And I think there is a lot of hypocrisy there, and and hypocrisy that people can see. Hypocrisy is the easiest thing that they can understand. You can't say that these guys are fascists, these guys are racist for 8 years for wanting to build a wall and then turn around and straight up tell Anderson Cooper in that town hall, well, maybe the wall is a good idea and I want to build it myself. I'm going to be the border czar. I'm going to be the border party. You can't do that. Americans look at that and go, so you're admitting that you were just lying for the past 8 years.
Well, it's like, again, though, it's like, I think actually, like you look at somebody like Dan Osborne, right, who ran so far ahead of the Democratic Party, ran as this economic populist, but one of the things he had to do to get there was...
No drama, no stunlock, but have you heard about the Destiny Fuentes sex tapes? Brother, who do you think was holding the camera? I'll say no more.
Kind of be tough on immigration. And actually, like, I think part of it goes back to, like, if people felt like they knew, like, in their bones, like Bernie Sanders being to me like the signal example, like, you know what Bernie's about. You know what he's for. You know what motivates him. You know what he cares about. Same thing for Trump. You know when there are issues he doesn't give a fuck about, and there's issues
I think it's really telling that the only thing this guy has offered substantial pushback on, though he didn't actually like substantiate it, was the idea of using the federal government to go after like the corruption of people who are obstructing your agenda, you know? Like, but he didn't want to talk about it, you know? Like, I don't know. I think that just makes people very uncomfortable to think about. But then, like, you really have to think about, like, why? That's literally their job. The only reason they don't investigate corruption like that is because there were implicit orders from the higher up to not do that. Do you think those people are stupid? These regulatory agencies, they know how the game is played to the extent that they're not already captured by the agencies that they're trying to regulate, or by the industries they're trying to regulate. They're fully aware of the fact that if one of these guys was like, just for fun, we're going to investigate the relatives of a senator. Yep, a sitting senator. Yep, he's been there for a long time, got a lot of friends. Yep, they're very wealthy. All right, let's do it. Like, yeah, they're not stupid. You would need the mandate of a president to go after something like that big. You know? Otherwise, it just gets shut down. Of course it gets shut down.
He really, really cares about. Immigration is one, trade, right? Like, you know, the things that like that have been anti-crime, whatever, that there are things that have been in Donald Trump's like kind of brain slowly losing plasticity that are like kind of solid in there.
Me too.
And for Bernie, you know, like we know why he's in politics, and that gives a politician the space to kind of challenge orthodoxies in the party, or kind of run counter to it, to signal to the people you need to signal to. Now, like, you know, you say, oh, you can't call them fascist and then also work with them. Like, yeah, but at the same time, Joe, like, again, like,
senators get prosecuted all the time. Menendez, senators get prosecuted all the time, brings up like not only an incredibly rare example of a senator getting prosecuted, but also one in which the corruption that he engaged in was so obvious and so straightforward. Like the one time, also that was like broad corruption, not like in a specific or politically targeted way. That was literally like gold bars hidden behind the wall. I mean, that like that he worked for that prosecution.
It's like, I just don't know what to do with this nuance. Joe Biden, like, I am glad Joe Biden did the Inflation Reduction Act and an infrastructure bill and a gun bill.
No one cares.
And the CHIPS Act.
No one cares.
And a bunch of other stuff. I'm glad he was able to do all of those things. I'm glad that he was able to use his kind of like moderate brand, whatever, to kind of bring people in and get some stuff done. Like,
but he didn't. Like, he didn't. That you're comparing this against the false like juxtaposition where he was more radically populist and no one wanted to work with him, you know?
I don't think the country is better off if he didn't do those things. So, like, you describe it as hypocrisy. Like, it's compromise. Like, politics requires compromise.
No, wait, again, like the idea that the only reason the infrastructure bill or the Inflation Reduction Act happened was because of his, you know, mollycoddling and weakness and inability to form partisan lines. Like, I flatly don't think that's true. And if you want an example of what partisanship can get you, look what the Trump administration's about to get away with. The CHIPS Act actually got cut by 2/3 in order to meet Republican demands. Yeah, like, we get nothing, and the nothing we get is cut down. Like, yeah, Republicans don't have to compromise, and they win. Why is that?
The Republican Party rarely ever compromises.
Yeah.
They're uncompromising. You only have to beat them.
But that's not true, though, right? Like, I agree with that on Trump, but that's just not true. Like, they did compromise, right? They, like, there are plenty of people on the Republican side that were furious at Republican senators for going along with some of these Biden bills, right? Like, those are people that did compromise.
Yeah, there is a.
But again, well, not really. No. What fury? What real electoral consequences are there to that? Like, what has happened? What outcome has there been? They got primaried. Okay, they got primaried by people who are more ideologically aligned. Yeah, Liz Cheney voted 99% with Trump. Like, it doesn't. The point here is that the Republican Party isn't weakened as an entity, as a platform, by these occasional instances of them working with Democrats, whereas the Democrats are constantly weakening themselves and shooting themselves in the foot and getting nothing done because of their insistence on working with Republicans. And then people say, well, if they didn't work with Republicans, they wouldn't get anything at all. To which my answer is, well, then why are they in a different position than with the Republicans? Like, why is that? Why are the Republicans so strong? Why do we have to accept such weakness? Why is the system set up in such a way that we have to keep like placating like this? Yeah, the GOP threw out their speaker. They're incredibly militant in reinforcing the party doctrine. Do Democrats do this? No, there's no drive in them. There's no fight. There's no fire in their heart.
A million examples, however, of Republicans that are obstructionists that I'm sure you also love presenting, that go back to their town halls and lie about all the money that they brought back home from the bills that they voted against. So ultimately, we now know that political polarization is set in a way that never really existed in American history until the last couple of decades, right? I think that parties originally were more geopolitically focused on their immediate needs, like statewide needs. So you saw this dramatic shift, and now the Republican Party is...
Republicans live in terror of contradicting Donald Trump. They are worried about them running afoul or incurring his ire. You know, I want a Democratic Party where a progressive populist president incurs that kind of fear in the politicians underneath him. I want Democratic House members and senators to adjust their rhetoric in order to not alienate themselves in the eyes of the hyper-popular leader.
Especially with Mitch McConnell under the Obama administration, showcased that like permanent obstructionism is not punishable, and that gridlock is always considered the administrative party's problem. If there's any sort of gridlock, it's the fault of the leadership, and Americans hate gridlock. Yeah, that's kind of the reason why I was talking about Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, because that was a massive moment where like they actually ended up protecting the Republican Party because they were never going to vote for these bills anyway, and now the entire conversation was about like madness within the Democratic Party's caucuses, like, oh, they can't get their ducks in a row, right? Like that was genuinely frustrating to me, because it's like, if you had whipped your votes immediately, then you could showcase that the Republican Party is standing in the way of progress. But that's just like, that is legislative minutia. What is more important to talk about is broad, sweeping legislative changes or a agenda.
Yeah, speaking of just getting this from Blue Sky Now, like in terms of the disposition of the Democratic leadership.
But these values, these norms, these ideas, these institutions have to hold. And we recognize that as House Democrats will now play a significant role in that regard. And, the thing I've always appreciated about Liz, and
Liz
the
Cheney.
thing, a lot of us who spend time in that, we love the House of Representatives. And the House of Representatives is the institution, of course, that the framers decided would be the closest.
After extensive polling indicating that association with Liz Cheney did nothing but a disservice to Kamala Harris's winning chances, here we have one of the most powerful people in the Democratic Party sitting here in a dimly lit room, buzzing audio on C-SPAN, saying like, well, here we are. Like, this is the Democratic leadership, talking about what the founding fathers would have wanted while sitting with somebody for whom like acceptance of is representative of the overall decline of your party. Also, he's wearing dress sneakers, which I find sickening. It's repugnant. It really, really is.
That might even come across as bold and radical in the interest of the American working class. Joe Biden said he wanted to do the public option.
Yeah, Republicans threw out their House Speaker over like basically nothing. Democrats will keep all of their leadership, even as they lose the trifecta. Like, that's the difference, man.
Everybody knew that wasn't real. He never talked about it after. He used the public option. He slotted that in the primaries when the party was primed to the Bernie left, and everyone was like, trying to communicate their own populist version of what Bernie was doing, and Joe Biden won the primaries and effectively tabled the discussion about healthcare. This is still a major problem, regardless. Like, yes. Negotiating pharmaceutical prices and ensuring that insulin prices are capped at $35, which is now going to be looking like a Trump victory when he's in office. It doesn't matter. It's still good for the American people. So that's great. But like, that is good, but that's not enough.
Yeah.
And I think that when you don't do that, when you have this very technocratic, third-way neoliberal approach, but you sprinkle in a little bit of like anti-corporate, anti-billionaire populism that Joe Biden certainly did, it's not, you're a rudderless ship. You're not communicating effectively like what you are about. And when you don't have a North Star that every single person can point to and say, this is what the party is about, your enemies can portray you as whatever they want. And that's why the anti-trans ads are even remotely effective, because you can make the Democratic Party look clownish and inconsistent and even silly and hyper-focused on whatever key issues there are, because one, they rarely ever focus on universality in programs. Everything has to be means tested, which I think is both on the policy front and on the politics front garbage. Focus on universal programs, because that way you can cut across every single group and you can disproportionately target marginalized populations. Black.
This is like the easiest sell in the universe. Everything that we know about politics suggests that across the board proposals are much more popular than means-tested ones. Democrats insist on means testing because they have brain damage. It's literally it. It's politics is about popularity, you idiots. Obviously it is. That's how you win an election, by being popular.
Populations, brown populations, and trans people. These people do not exist in a vacuum. They're not magical, mystical beings that are not experiencing the shocks of the market, or they still have to pay rent. They still need workplace protections. They still need, they still need the cost of medicine to go down, right? So universal programs capture the attention of all Americans, including this majority white, angry population that is finding themselves in the throes of the Republican reactionary movement. And so they need to do that. And if they don't do that, then the subtle populism of the right is always going to be the only game in town, and they're going to be able to present themselves as anti-establishment while they have billionaires parading around all the campaign stops, like Elon Musk trying to do that X logo every time he jumps.
Think of it, I don't think that FDR's vision died with FDR. Like, his brand of social democracy continued to like be an icon for the country basically until Reagan, right? Like, obviously, I'm not saying LBJ or JFK were, as good as FDR. They certainly weren't. But he created the norms and standards that were not meaningfully, substantially dismantled until Reagan. So, like, that's kind of history. You're always going to get a bit of ebb and flow. But if you're strong, you can build something that lasts a while. Nixon was not. Nixon wasn't like a deregulatory neocon in the way that, Reagan was. Nixon was way better than Reagan by like a factor of 10, to be honest with you.
Like a child. God, I hate Elon Musk.
That is the trick, though, man. They're like, it does speak to just how far, one place where. So if you listen to the Harris campaign's advisors talking to Dan Pfeiffer, I know you did, and you had your problems with it. But one place where they agreed is that, hey, everyone's saying, oh, this trans ad, like it actually might not have been their most effective ad. And they were trying to, and what Quentin Falk.
Yeah, all of this really insidious, like talking about the Harris they them ad as though that was the meaningful, like that was the thing that motivated most people. When we know for a fact from the exit polls, most of the people who voted for Trump were motivated by stuff like the economy and immigration. So people insisting like, oh yeah, it was because of that Harris stands for they them ad, like really strikes to me as an example of manufactured consent, where they're trying to go like, hey, maybe we do have to walk back on the trans support, you know? Maybe we do have to dial it down because she was so vulnerable in that issue, even though she never ever talked about trans people at all, not for years now. The one time she was asked about it, she tersely responded with pursed lips that she would follow the law with regards to, a trans-affirming care. I bet it was that ad.
Said was that like they were actually really trying to target it to get at black men, and it looks like maybe that didn't work, right? Like that's without that sort of, we'll see, like we're gonna get more data, but like the point that the ad makes is just that like Democrats are weird, Democrats are strange, right? And like they use trans people as a cudgel to do that. But like to the larger point, you have billionaires, just the wealthy, literally the wealthiest man in the world.
The top seven donors this election cycle all donated to the Republican Party, and they were donating like $100 million, $200 million. Like it was crazy.
How do you think about the fact that in right-wing media right now, and like right-wing adjacent media, they are managing to be both the party of the wealthiest sort of oligarchs in the world and the kind of traditional moral set trying to impose a specific way of living on people, and anti-establishment kind of rebellious politics?
Because the Democrats are so bad at messaging that Republicans have filled the void, like entirely. Like Democrats are so uniquely weak and so uniquely bad at filling the media space with a narrative that Republicans have been allowed to do literally whatever they want with it. Donald Trump engages in more populist, like anti-elite rhetoric than the Democrats can, because when the Democrats do it, all their consultants get nervous, and when Trump does it, all their consultants know that he's just lying. I think I was wrong. Looks like the shirt Hasan is wearing. Is this meant to be rage bait? Because if this was a genuine attempt at finding it, this is pretty poor. First of all, this is a denim 5-pocket chore jacket, not an overshirt or a work shirt. Second of all, there's only one top pocket. Third of all, there are 2 pockets down here because it's a chore coat. It's a chore jacket. Like this is miserable. The buttons don't look right. It's just a terrible attempt on your part. Also, this is denim. This is
and they
very
were
clearly a
like
cotton poplin. Okay, come on, get your weave right.
Million
and anti-establishment kind of rebellious politics.
It's Nazi Germany, straight up. It's just pure fascism. That's all this is. It worked. It worked 100 years ago. And it's seemingly working right now, and it's not just the United States.
Look at this. You think you're going to get puckering around the edges of a work shirt's flat pocket like this on denim? Are you kidding? How? You're insane.
States of America, it's all across Western Europe. The only country that bucked the trend of the incumbency disadvantage, seemingly, was Mexico. Mm-hmm. One must ask the question why an old, doddering man who was still, relatively telegenic, even though he believed in wood elves, duendes, was able to get a tremendous amount of popularity and then become the transition candidate that actually passed the torch to a younger woman, Claudia Sheinbaum. I'm, of course, talking about Mexico. I'm talking about AMLO is the old man. Claudia Sheinbaum was his spiritual and ideological successor in the Morena party. Why did that happen? Why was AMLO so popular? And why is Claudia Sheinbaum also incredibly popular? Why did Claudia Sheinbaum win the election with even larger margins of victory than AMLO did? It's because they expanded the welfare state, they increased minimum wage, and you know, they made a whole bunch of decisions that genuinely improved the material conditions of a lot of people in Mexico, and that's something that people will never forget. We talked about...
Yeah, it does help that she seems to have like actual values, and there's something that she believes in. You know, people vote on hope. People want to vote to make the future better. You know, people are not going to vote out of continuation of the status quo they're dissatisfied with. They're just not going to. I'm not going to be able to cover this for much longer because we're like 1/4 of the way through, and that would be insane. I want to get like a selective... Okay, the Hasan portion is 1 hour and 41 minutes. It's so good. Yeah, well, for the most part, Hasan is saying stuff that I've said. And I'm not saying he's cribbed it from me, of course. That'd be insane. I think that both he and I have arrived independently at more or less the same conclusions, because I think they're pretty standard populist conclusions. You know, like, I think a lot of people have arrived at these conclusions. I see how it is. I see how it is. You want to watch it. All right. Well, you know, I want to see how this ends. Okay? The people want this, so we watch. No, I don't stream often enough to dedicate that large a portion of my runtime to that sort of thing. I do, however, want to see how it ends, and you're just going to have to live with that. If you want to see more, you can watch the full thing. No content stealing.
Take away from Donald Trump becoming president is that, like, clearly we need somebody.
People want a fighter.
They want a fighter. They want a fighter, and like...
And you can't fight for opportunity economy and $50,000 in tax credits for startups. That is not something to fight for. You need to be a fighter, and you need to fight for things that are universally good and that people want. Healthcare, fixing the housing market, things like that.
Well, she did do that.
The problem with having this conversation with people like the Pod Save guys is that I genuinely don't think populism registers with him. Look at this. He was just like, yeah, she has to be a fighter. And then Hasan describes what she has to be a fighter on, and then he answers with, well, she did that. No, she didn't. She wasn't a fighter on any of these issues. She had a few means-tested policies, and she was incredibly weak in arguing for them. She also needs the mandate of the party behind her, not just her alone saying it. She needs like an entire unified front. They don't understand populism. I'm going to be honest with you guys. If you have to ask, well, what's the value of populism in a conversation about winning next time, I don't think you're going to be that populist. I think you have it or you don't. Liberalism's a brain disease, man. Like how you're never going to motivate people who think and act like this to wake up one day and go like, oh, wow, you're right. It is a popularity contest, and I do have to care about messaging. You know? You're not that guy. You don't understand.
Yeah, I just like I agree with you.
But again, even her communication on that is like, so much of the Democratic Party is now officially captured by what we would look back in the past as like unimaginably right-wing economic policies, like tax cuts and tax cuts and a public-private partnership. When I hear those words, I'm like, I'm not regime pilled.
Yeah,
I want to be regime pilled. I want to champion the social democratic regime. I want to make the Democratic Party look like. I want to make the Democratic Party make Olof Palme look like a fucking revisionist right-wing reactionary.
Okay.
That's what I want. I want trains.
I want trains.
I want better public transit.
Better transit. I want more. I want
socialized housing. Like,
okay.
But you're stopping.
I don't know, but like, what do you mean?
They are double knee pants. These are double knee, maybe carpenter pants. I wonder where these are from. I don't know what this flap is right here. Is that just like a gigantic fatigue pocket flap? I don't understand fashion.
Yeah, we can't get into it. We can't get. We are out of time. We've gone so long.
What I'm saying is like,
see, yeah, like Hasan is spitting here, but it's not registering with this guy because in his head he's thinking, but the graphs, but the charts, but the studies showed a 2.3% increase in standard of living if people had only listened to Kamala Harris and accepted the $50,000 tax credit or whatever, like that, you know?
I am for building millions upon millions of houses everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how?
That's what I'm for.
Yeah, but no public-private partnership. Build it with federal, publicly funded employees, and build it as a mechanism to claw back the insane housing market prices, to lower them by force.
Okay.
That's what I think.
See, look, he's like fed up with it. He's like, okay, yeah, whatever, man. I mean, I know that, like, you know, I know they did that during the New Deal, and it literally brought us out of the Great Depression and led to the greatest era of prosperity and, you know, wealth equality in the history of the United States, and that everything got better. But like, okay, yeah, like whatever, play the socialists. Okay.
All right.
I think if you said that, a lot of Americans would be like, I like that idea.
I think if
That's not quite correct. The New Deal program was a public-private partnership. There were, I mean, well, it wasn't just one program, right? There were like wide swaths of it, but like certainly the federal government exercised much more control over the way those funding, the funding was spent and how those projects were directed. There was a huge mural, and also my gym at the high school that I grew up at were built by FDR. Personally, no, they were built through the New Deal, but like that money wasn't just like, because nowadays a public-private partnership literally just means the government gives the private company money and they do whatever they want. That's not even an exaggeration. There are so many public-private partnerships where it's like, we have given an ungodly amount of money to a corporation in, you know, with like maybe 10 years from now, we'll investigate whether they use that money appropriately. Meanwhile, in the New Deal, there was some direct, like just like on the ground, public federal workforces on out there, you know? There were so many strings attached. It was like they wove a blanket around them. I don't know. Very, very, very different. I mean, that might be just a broader conversation, Yeet. You know, there's a limit to how much you can get into, you know?
Democratic politician got up there and said, we are gonna employ millions of Americans. We're gonna have a national jobs program to employ millions of Americans building millions of houses. I think that'd be very popular. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You're regime pilled as well.
I am regime pilled. Now, I did go on your feed yesterday to see what you've been up to.
Oh my God.
And can we just put this up?
I think I know what you're going to post.
I'm glad I
was looking for what your reaction was to the Harris campaign podcast, and I just found this, and I just thought, is this
okay? That wasn't what I expected him to pull up, but it's cool.
What the Joe Rogan of the left would post?
I think Joe Rogan posts sexy
Donald
pics of
Trump.
himself.
Donald Trump wins, and you're like, I think I know what I need to do. I need to post Hull.
Yeah.
You getting good reactions to this? Is this getting you what you need?
Well, I wanted to show my.
Well, I can't tell. Is he actually like? Does he actually think this is unprofessional? I think he's ribbing Hasan, because it would be wild if he was actually like put off by it or something. I think he's ribbing. Yeah.
Progress. It's been a while. You know, that's like from 2021 till now, and I mean, I do talk about my fitness journey quite a bit.
You do Pilates?
What?
You do Pilates?
No, I train. I weight train, and then I play basketball.
What are you doing for cardio? Nothing?
Basketball.
Basketball?
Yeah, I play basketball 3 times a week, sometimes 4. And that's been very good. I also track my macro nutrients. I track all my calories.
Well, I wonder, for cutting, I wonder what caloric deficit he runs. I'm lazy as shit and haven't worked out in years, so when I'm dieting, it's usually like 1,800 calories, which is pretty low for someone with my like resting, you know, like basal metabolic rate. He's probably cutting at 4,000. He might, unironically, like probably around 3,000.
What does that do for you?
What do you mean? It's that right.
You think
there.
that's what it's doing?
Picture on the right. That's how I got there.
Oh.
Yeah.
I use Manjaro. It's awesome.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
I have family members that use it as well, and it's been very helpful.
Yeah, I don't have to think about it anymore.
Well, yeah, it's great. It's fantastic. Do you feel like it's stopped your other addictive tendencies as well?
I'm a better driver. Isn't that weird?
Maybe because you're not on your phone or something?
No, I think it's because I
can't read this guy's tone very well, to be honest.
I'm not spending so much of my like mental energy on like diet, and so like I'm just a little bit less kind of spent and like kind of, I don't know, impulsive around other things, and so like I don't feel some need to like get home 2 minutes faster. It's hard to explain. Like, I don't feel as much of a need
understand
to find justice on the roads.
I understand.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. You asked me. No, I 100% get it. You asked me like why you track your calories or whatever. Like, I get a lot of.
I do feel like there's like a hunger for like something broader than just a political program, but like more of a kind of way of grappling with the fact that this
he's talking about lifestyle politics, and the truth is that lifestyle politics have always been the correct way to engage in it. FDR, JFK, they both understood this perfectly well. Ever since it's been possible to follow the life of a politician, like, you know, post radio, basically, like not just TV, but like even with radio, fireside chats or whatever, like the Democrat consensus on this, or the impulse from their side of things, I think, is that politics is this boring procedural thing that you touch in on once every 2 years, and it's all policy based, and that's all, you know, when in reality, truly popular leaders have never been defined by their policy, but by their messaging. They've been defined by this broader cult of personality that's built around them. And you can have an issue with cults of personality if you want, like, that's totally fine. But FDR had one, and he also did a lot of good for this country. So, like, yes, ideally, leftist thought leaders are not just going on there to go policy charts, graphs or whatever, but yeah, they'd be like fit posting, they'd be like getting engaged in like local sports or whatever. 100%, yeah, they'd have strong opinions on a bunch of cultural issues because it humanizes them, because it makes them more relatable. That's part of my appeal. That's part of Hasan's appeal. The fact that I don't just get on here and spout policy or whatever, but I engage in like a broader, like you get a broader slice of my personality. Likewise with him.
Version of modern life kind of dares us to ruin our own lives.
Yeah,
you know,
I offer that in my broadcasts every day. I mean, I talk about my own personal journeys, and I offer advice. I used to have an advice segment as well. I haven't done it in a while, but like, you know, I'm going to bring it back. And that's why I also like collaborate with other content creators, even if I don't align with them politically, agree with them politically at all. But, you know, there are plenty of people that I know who are my friends, who I think...
Hasan talked about you for a bit in the stream today. I think that Hasan's attitude towards me is and probably will remain almost exclusively like, not antagonistic necessarily, but like dismissive, tinged with antagonism, and that's probably never going to change because of my pariah status within the leftist community. Not really in a position to complain on my part because I've still done pretty well for myself, but you know, I'm mostly concerned with like, as the world gets worse in the next few years. You both do that to each other. I don't really dismiss or antagonize Hasan. I mean, I've criticized him plenty, but to be honest, I just don't really care. Like a lot of the needling little drama stuff, the whole point of the Fortress arc, or whatever the fuck we want to call it in retrospect, was like, how much can this, I guess, brand, or how much can this platform exist outside of this like stupid, incessant, myopic like death spiral where you know, are always gossip mongering and always shit talking and so on and so forth. And I just don't really care. I'd like to think that my opinions on people are more or less the product of like legitimately, you know, how I feel about them and what I think they do. And for the most part, of course, Hasan does a good job. I haven't seen his coverage of the recent developments in Aleppo. I really hope that he's not an Assadist. I don't think he is, but to be honest, I don't know. But in all seriousness, yeah, it's pretty much, he's not. Oh. Allegations beaten. Hasan is not an Assadist.
As long as they're like relatively charitable and good and kind people, even if we don't agree on everything politically, it doesn't matter.
Anyway, like, as the world gets worse in the coming years, I'm mostly concerned with, like, you know, being a good figure, having a good message, providing guidance and advice to people who feel disillusioned with the world, because their disillusionment is legitimate. I'm not trying to do that liberal de-radicalizing bullshit where you take people who are frustrated with the world and you're like, no, don't worry, the world is already fine. See, we have Pell Grants.
And you know, I find myself in these bro spaces a lot. I've been on almost every single podcast that Trump has been on.
Yeah.
And many of them are run by my friends. Like,
I wonder if Hasan even believes in his tired doublespeak or just does it for views. What doublespeak has Hasan engaged in over the course of the entire interview that we've seen. A lot of people have joined the stream today and are talking for the first time, which is usually a good sign. And a lot of them have been shit-talking Hasan in a way that makes me think they're bots. But you've been talking about, like, a bunch of stuff, you know. So I guess you seem fine, like you're not a bot. I just don't understand what you're referring to exactly, because it seems like kind of baseless mongering. You know what I mean? Yeah, I saw that one, nuts.
Impulsive. My buddy Mike Malak is Logan Paul's co-host. Not the biggest fan of Logan Paul, but I love Mike. Mike is a fantastic human being. He has an incredible journey of overcoming addiction, and he wrote about it as well. He had a New York Times bestseller. Bradley Martin with the Nelk Boys. I don't really know the Nelk Boys, but like Bradley Martin I like a lot. He owned that for good. And I try to use that to like explain to people that like it's not cool to, you know, shit on random people for no reason. They're like, let them live. Like, what the fuck is this to you? It's not going to fix your life.
All right. It seems like we pretty much watched the interview. I skipped the middle chunk, but if you want that, you'll have to watch their thing. Really, though, I'm glad this conversation is being had, and I genuinely hope that people in the consultancy space see this, and they don't think of Hasan as like, oh, okay, he's like a frat boy with a big platform, whatever. You know? I really hope they look at this and they build off of it, and or just they take something to heart, man. That would be my hope. I think so far the response that I've seen to this, I saw some social media buzz. It seems largely positive, you know? And yeah, it seems like the people here are mostly positive on the conversation. I just wish politicians didn't hire consultants. Well, even in a good world, they would have to. I just wish those consultants didn't also, like, work for BlackRock. You know what I mean? Like, the consultancy is one thing, but then, like, oh, yeah, we hired them from a firm that also does work for General Electric. And also, they're all exclusively, like, upper middle class or upper class Ivy League graduates. Like, okay, what perspective do they fucking have on the world today? He talks about you here around the 309 mark here to watch. Oh no, I appreciate the offer, but like I've been directed to over the course of my career about 100,000 vague like someone talked about you, and it's always the same, you know, dismissal or contempt. I welcome their contempt. We're FDR posting. They are unanimous in their contempt for me, and I welcome it. Thank you. Literally me. Ugh. All right. I love you all very much. I'm going to end stream slightly early today. I'm very sorry. I'm going to hold off on reading donos. The main reason for this is because I don't know if you can tell in my voice, sick. It takes a lot of effort for me to talk right now. I don't want to read donations like feeling bad because that kind of comes across in how I read them. You need to poop? I will. I don't need to yet, but I will. Thank you for streaming. I'll be here tomorrow. I love you all very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I hope that you all have a wonderful day. I'll read the donos tomorrow. Take care. And I suppose I'll host Hasan because it seems pertinent considering the direction that stream took. Take care of yourselves. I love you, and stay safe, okay? And you'll see me tomorrow. Hopefully, if you're a real fan. Now, if you're a fake fan, you know, not much I can do about that. That's kind of on you.